You are clearly the only remaining Emperor Mirror expert in the world. Yet he insists on pretending to be a mortal dog and living in the mountains for 10,000 years. On the road, you never meet anyone. Hunting was done only with bows and arrows, simply because you know well how dangerous this world is. Although 99.9% of cultivators are weaker than you, but you're still afraid that an invincible expert with the Saint Mirror will kill you with a single palm. So you have a dog for a full 80,000 years. Until today, 99 until the heavenly thunder strikes. You have finally succeeded in becoming the invincible Saint Mirror expert of the time, and you instantly return from your weathered face to the youthful self you once was. You are very satisfied with this result. He felt it was time to return and see the family's grand success. However, when you break through taboos and break through the mountains, but he saw the current team leader, Nangong Junyi, standing firm against the heavenly thunder. It turns out that over these 80,000 years, the family lost the protection of you, the ancestor. The Nangong family's status in the martial world was declining day by day. The Li family even relied on the emperor's respect for powerful figures to oversee them. He blatantly sought to annex the Nangong family's eternal defense. With no other choice, Nangong Junyi could only openly agree to send his daughter to the next family. He planned to use this to earn the emperor's respected time. At this moment, a furious roar mixed with blood foam rang out. The sound echoed above the Nangong family residence. No, our Nangong family will never yield. The current team leader, Nangong Junyi, has a mustache and hair stretched out, covered in blood. His already aged face looked even more withered under the might of heaven. He struggled to push open a fragile spiritual shield. He looked up at the endless rolling purple thunderclouds above the end of the sky. His eyes burned with fire. Damn it, my Nangong Junyi has cultivated for 5,000 years, all to protect the family. Why won't you leave even a little chance of survival for my Nangong family? Group leader farther below, the elders and disciples of the Nangong family all looked at each other in shock. A whole group of people knelt down. They could only watch helplessly as their family's pillars struggled under the thunderbolt. The power of the source is being radically exhausted. In the blink of an eye, it will all fade away. This was no longer a normal resolution. The Blue Palace army was defeated in a single charge. This provokes backlash from the Heavenly Tao. He should have fallen because of this, but in order to secure a slim chance for the family, yet his soul was burned to ashes, forcibly prolonging life. Endure this deadly thunderbolt with all your might, all to intimidate the powerful enemy who had long been eyeing him like a tiger. But everyone could see it. He couldn't hold on any longer. Boom guy. Another barrel-thick purple bolt of heavenly thunder crashed down. Nangong Junyi's shield shattered instantly. He was sent flying backward as if he had lost control. He slammed hard onto the bluestone slab of the martial arts arena. Vitality is rapidly fading away at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's over. Everything is over. The group leader collapsed. The Li family would definitely come knocking immediately. My Nangong family. Is the clan going to be wiped out today? In a silent, desperate situation, the young girl Nangong Linga rushed at Nangong Junyi in tears. Tears ceaselessly fall. Father, wake up, father. In this deeply oppressive and sorrowful atmosphere, arriving at the secret stone gate that no one had noticed, a very faint cracking sound rang out. Inside the secret realm, a boy who looked only 17 or 18 years old. He was bored and brushed the dust off his clothes. Phew, finally done. You stretched lazily. The joints made a series of crackling cracks. Right above your head. Just moments ago, he was destroying heaven and earth. A total of 99 terrifying tribulation clouds of world-ending divine thunder descended. Now it has vanished like smoke and clouds, transforming into a harmonious rainbow of radiant light, gently sprinkling upon you. 80,000 years. It's been a full 80,000 years, ever since you accidentally crossed over into this cultivation world. You stick to one core principle, and developed accordingly. Don't wave. What prodigy contest? What secret realm treasure hunt? What a soulmate? None of it has anything to do with you. Just kidding. The outside world is so dangerous. Just any random old man who looks inconspicuous. There's always an old monster that's lived for tens of thousands of years. Just any inconspicuous mountain peak. All sealed ancient ferocious beasts. You just want to live well. So, you are hiding in this small secret realm specially opened by the family for you. No matter what, you refuse to go out. Plant some grass every day. Raise some fish. Boxing. Occasionally getting struck by lightning as a pastime. Just lay low like this. Unknowingly, 80,000 years have passed. Those legendary lords of the sacred lands who once dominated the world, the emperor of the immortal dynasty, the grass on the grave has already been replaced with tens of thousands of teas. And you, then it is just right. He successfully passed the 99th Heavenly Festival. Break through the barriers of the sacred realm in one stroke. This has achieved something that has never existed in the past of history. A realm of double victory. Feeling the endless energy within him, an inexhaustible force, and the youthful face returning to its peak. You nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. At last, I felt a bit more secure. I don't even know about the Nangong family I casually founded back then. How is it developing now? Logically, the cultivation techniques and resources I left behind. Even if you raise a herd of pigs, 80,000 years should be enough to nurture a few emperors. They should have already become the top power on this continent. They were enjoying the grand spectacle of all races paying tribute. You rubbed your hands together. He looked like a wealthy man preparing to review his family's assets. He cheerfully pushed open the stone door that hadn't been touched for 80,000 years. There was a drink. It was quite lively outside. As soon as he stepped outside, you hear thunder and noisy cries. You stick your head out. This is it. Are you setting off fireworks to celebrate my coming out of seclusion? You stared at the purple thundercloud in the sky. TSK. The quality of these fireworks is really poor. Soft, tiny pitifulness. And this special effect, that's just too fake. Why are you still lying on the ground coughing up blood? The performance is way too exaggerated. You keep your hands behind your back. Slowly threaded silk. He strolled out. You immediately see him lying on the ground, held in the arms of a young girl. Nangong Junyi was on the verge of death. You pause in your steps. She tilted her head. You can clearly perceive it. This old man who was dying. There is a faint blood connection with you. I am heavy. How many generations of grandchildren have been affected? You count on your fingers. I found it impossible to calculate at all, so I had to give up. At that moment, the last bolt of heavenly thunder in the sky, it was already ready to take off. The aura of destruction contained within. Let all the Nangong family members. They all closed their eyes. At that moment, the team leader was doomed. The Nangong family. It's over. Nangong Linga hugged her father even tighter, ready to die with him. However, just then, one was youthful yet somewhat radiant. Lan San's voice. A sudden sound rang out in the arena. That one. Excuse me. You scratched your head. A little embarrassed. He pointed up at the sky. That purple heavenly thunder brewed to the extreme. He asked Nangong Junyi, who was already caught in a mire situation. This thing, do you still want it? If you don't want to, I'll just let him break up. It's pretty annoying. This thing, do you still want it? This casual remark, like a thunderclap, it exploded in the minds of all the Nangong family members. Yes, this is deadly heavenly thunder. Who would dare to take it? But that last sentence of yours, let him disperse. What does that mean? Who do you think you are? A child of the heavenly Tao? Everyone stood frozen in place, staring at this suddenly appearing, handsome young man. The frozen Nangong Juanli also struggled to open his eyes, his face full of shock. Which family is this, Junior? Are you crazy? Before anyone could react, you already curled your lips impatiently. If you don't say anything, just take it as your tacit approval. You don't even bother to look up. He just casually pointed toward the sky. He waved his hand lightly. It's like driving away an annoying fly. The next second, it made everyone feel their hearts and souls in a deep stupor. A terrifying scene unfolded where the souls of the dead were caught in danger. That area enveloped the entire Nangong family. Purple clouds radiating a destructive aura, simply vanishing into thin air, that had already locked in Nangong Junyi, the impending heaven extinction thunder. He didn't even let out a single fart. Then it vanished without a trace. The sky was cloudless, a deep blue. It was as if the scene had just been apocalyptic. It was just an illusion, memorizing the whole scene. If it truly can be heard, all the sons and elders of the Nangong family, each of them opened their mouths wide enough to fit a duck egg. His eyes were so wide they seemed about to pop out of their sockets. My mind went blank. What the hell is going on? With a wave of his hand, the heavenly knot is dissolved. What kind of eternal joke is this? Even the legendary biblical brain is already a unique skill. It's impossible to erase the laws of the heavenly Tao so lightly. Hey. Nangong Jun suddenly coughed up a large mouthful of black blood. Snapping out of the shock, he looked at the unfamiliar face before him, a boy who gave him a touch of warmth. A huge storm surged in his heart, but he didn't have time to think it through. Surviving a disaster is not joy, but deeper despair. The heavenly knot is gone, but the family's crisis was only just beginning. He struggles to grab the hem of your shirt. With all my might, the illegitimate student shouted. Good kid, no matter who you are. No, why are you shouting so loudly? I'm not deaf, you should go. Nangong Jun's eyes were red. The Li family, they forced us to hand over our monks. The clan's treasured treasure, the heavenly fire token, still wants to seize Linga. I have challenged the emperor's respect, wanting to fight to the death, but in the end, I failed. Today, they set a deadline. As soon as I die, they'll come in immediately. You're the once in a 10,000 Chilean of the Nangong family, you can't die here. Leave quickly, for my Nangong. The family preserves a trace of bloodline. Nangong Linga also pleaded through tears. Yes, this senior brother, please leave quickly, don't worry about us anymore. Although he doesn't know this young man. What did you use? Zhongqian's method dispelled the heavenly thunder, but the Li family truly has a real deal. The colossal being guarded by the emperor. Manpower. How could they possibly stand against such a colossal force? You finally understand. So someone is coming to destroy my Nangong family, and they want to steal my great-granddaughter. You frown slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a lifetime of earth-shattering longing. The Nangong family's sash has been passed down. Thousands of years of heavy bronze doors. He was kicked to pieces from outside. Countless copper fragments struck toward the inner courtyard. Ha ha ha. The Southern Palace Army righteousness. The time had come. I am here to personally fetch your young lady. Go enjoy life at our Li family. Arrogant, and cannot be ruled over for a single generation. He saw a middle-aged man dressed in a tight robe, accompanied by a dozen or so fierce guards. He swaggered in. He didn't look at the elders coughing up blood on the ground or the wailing disciples. He stared straight at Nangong Linga, who was being protected behind by Nangong Junyi. TSK, truly a heavenly beauty. Our young master will definitely like it. The middle-aged man licked his lips. His eyes were filled with silver blood and greed. He then glanced over persistently. On the ground, Nangong Junyi was barely clinging to life. He sneered. Oh, not dead yet. Holding your ground like a thunderbolt. What an old dog. Unfortunately, a loser is still a waste. Failed to challenge the emperor. Now, how is it any different from a dead dog? Li Xianfeng, you've gone too far. An elder from the male father-in-law pointed at him. He was trembling with anger. This is an exaggeration of the people. Known as Li Xuanfeng's envoy, it was as if he'd just heard the biggest joke. He stomped his foot hard. A terrifying pressure worthy of heaven erupted with a thunderous roar. No, that elder felt as if he had been struck hard. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, flying backward, recklessly reckless. A group of ants on the verge of death. He was worthy of reasoning with me. Li Xuanfeng's face was full of contempt and satisfaction. Today, I'm here to bully you. What can you do? He walked step by step toward Nangong Linga. You smiled and said, Miss Linga, you have to come with me yourself, or let me break your father's limbs. I'll drag you along again. Don't worry about it. Nangong Linga was so frightened her face turned pale, repeatedly hindering his legs. Come here. Li Xianfeng couldn't be bothered to waste words. He opened his large hand. A powerful surge of sharpness struck toward Nangong Linga. The righteous eyes of the Nangong army seemed about to burst out, but he didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. Disper, utter disper. However, just as Li Xuanfeng's hand was about to touch Nangong Linga, a fair, slender palm, but it floated out lightly. He stood in front of Nangong Linga, taking action. It was you. You are from start to finish. His facial expressions barely changed, but the original blue scatter. At this moment, it had turned into a bone-chilling cold. Li Xuanfeng's grasping power. When it touches your palm, it vanishes into thin air. Li Xianfeng frowned. Only then did he look directly at the young man who had appeared out of nowhere. He shouted coldly. Where did it come from? It was small. It landed on Li Xuanfeng's face. What kind of eyes were that? No neck, no waves. Yet it seemed to contain a collapsing sea of hearts. No anger, no intent to kill. There is only a silent view of lifeless things. Who gave you the guts to be dogs? Your voice is very soft, yet it was clearly heard in the ears of everyone present. It moved the people of my husband's family. Ha! Li Xianfeng seemed to have heard the funniest joke of the century. At first, there was a single music. Then he burst into exaggerated laughter, laughing so hard my stomach and waist back. Ha ha ha. What did I hear? I'm Li Xianfeng, one of the three great envoys seated under the emperor of the Li family, a powerful figure respected by the heavens. He was questioned by a kid who hadn't even grown a full hair. The guards behind him burst into laughter. Look at you, full of dramatic blood and pity. Just treat you as a fool who willingly goes to his death. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? Li Xianfeng had laughed enough. His face instantly turned ferocious. A surge of overwhelming killing intent locked onto you. Your husband's family is about to wipe out their ancestors. Who do you think you are? A bastard who appeared from some chicken foot crackle, and dares to bark wildly in front of me. I'll give you 3 small moments. On your knees, kowtow, and cut off both his own arms. Otherwise, this envoy will make it impossible for you to survive. And sought death but could not. First, the pressure of respect crushes toward you. In Li Xuanfeng's view, this reckless kid, his bones would be crushed in an instant, kneeling and begging for mercy. However, 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, you still stand where you are. The clouds are light and the breeze gentle. Forget about bones shattering. He didn't even move a single foot. That terrifying pressure was enough to crush an entire mountain range. Fall on you. It didn't even make you blink. The smile on Li Xuanfeng's face froze. He felt his own pressure. He crashed into a bottomless void. No response at all. How is this possible? Got a bit of a trick. No wonder people stand out against the wall. Li Xuanfeng's face darkened, but he didn't think much of it. He assumed it was some secret treasure that contained some hidden aura on him. In his view, this area, even the strongest Nangong Junyi was already a dead dog. What other experts could possibly emerge? Since you are asking for death, then you can't blame me. To die at the hands of me, Li Xianfeng. It's also your great honor. A fierce light flashed in Li Xuanfeng's eyes. Too lazy to waste words. He raised his hand and struck with a palm, unleashing overwhelming spiritual power. It transformed into a fierce black elbow. Slam it hard onto your crown belt. This palm strike, he used 70% of his strength, not to mention a young man. Even if it was a heavenly venerable of the same rank, caught up in the fight, he would also be seriously injured. He wanted to do so in front of all the Nangong family members. This kid dares to provoke himself. 1 slap turned him into a pulp. Be careful. Nangong Linger screamed in shock. Nangong Junyi was even more shocked, wanting to rescue them, but he couldn't muster the slightest bit of strength. He could only watch helplessly as that devastating palm strike descended. The one who spouts nonsense. It's a bit noisy, extremely restless. It's so annoying. Just when everyone thought you were doomed, with thin lips and light breath, he composed 2 words, Guozheng. His words were spontaneous. Some even made it seem a bit understated. But these 2 words, it contains the essence of heaven and earth that extends beyond the Dharma. The moment the dark wave spread, time stood still. That black elbow carrying world-shattering power, just 3 inches above your head, cracking and splitting inch by inch, transforming into the purest spiritual energy, dissipating into nothingness. Immediately after, an even more disturbing scene occurred. Li Xianfeng was the first to bear the brunt. The smile on his face had not yet faded. Endless fear and confusion were reflected in his pupils. He didn't even manage to scream in agony. The whole body, from flesh to bones, then to the soul, it vanished in an instant. No, not evaporation. It is a direct invisible sound wave captured from within. It shattered into the most primal blood stain. Plop, a strange mass of blood filth. It exploded in midair. Not even a shred of flesh was left behind. And this is just the beginning. That insignificant sound wave continued to spread backward. He swept past the dozen or so guards behind Li Xianfeng, who were also looking arrogant. Huff 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 huff. The sounds kept ringing one after another. Those dozen or so fierce guards with the lowest cultivation level were also Sage Jing. They didn't even know what had happened. One after another, following in Li Xuanfeng's footsteps. Together, they hugged each other into one mass after another of bloody filth. Back and forth, within a single breath. Just moments ago, he was arrogant. The Li family members were arrogant to the extreme. That's it. All gone. Only a dozen or so slowly dispersing bloodstains remained. It radiates a pungent scent under the sunlight, proving that they once existed. The entire Nangong family residence was silent. The wind stopped. The crying stopped. Even the sound of breathing stopped. All the sons and elders of the Nangong family will be at their original locations. Maintain a posture of either fear, anger, or despair. Motionless, their eyes fixed on the dozen or so bloody masses. Their brains have completely shut down. They couldn't comprehend what was happening before their eyes, a shadow that surpassed their cognitive limits. 1 sentence at a time. A heavenly revered powerhouse and a dozen saints respected as guards. And just like that, it was gone. Not even a scrap remains. Is this a miracle? Nangong Linger's mouth opened into a circle. He stared blankly at the back of the young man in front of him. His heartbeat was about to stop. Nangong Junyi was fully mobilized. He struggled to lift his head, with a gaze as if looking at a god, staring intently at your profile. Who exactly is this young man? Under the watchful eyes of the entire audience. You don't care at all. You waved your hand disdainfully. It dispelled the smell of blood before him. Then slowly turn around. He looked at Nangong Junyi, who had already fully materialized. A playful smile appeared on his face. After all these years, I haven't seen you. You youngsters, how could things be so miserable? Let me introduce myself. The boy paused. The voice came through clearly, in the ears of every Nangong family member. The Nangong family, the first generation of the family. Nangong Haotian. Additionally, a friendly reminder. Ancestor I, he's not dead yet. As soon as he finished speaking, Nangong Junyi's body trembled, and was filled with shock and disgust. His origin had collapsed, and a body on the verge of death. But at this moment, he was extremely excited, and it's hard to believe. Coughing violently, mouthfuls of black blood gushed out in large gulps. His breath was even weaker than before. It was clear he was about to die on the spot. Nangong Linger was so terrified she nearly lost her soul, crying out, "Father, father, what's wrong?" You see, he frowned. Then, really not frightening. You don't want to move forward. He crouched down. He glanced at Nangong Junyi's condition. He curled his lips. The committee members scattered and scattered. His soul felt as if it would split apart. Entering the lamp cave. What a hassle. As he spoke, you start rummaging through your seemingly plain storage ring. Flip one side. She muttered to herself while muttering to herself. This 9-turn yellow soul pill had been stored for 30,000 years. The drug's effects have probably all worn off. No, it is not allowed. This bottle of life fountain water seems to be running out too. Thrown away. What is this? I remembered. Last time the barbecue had no seasonings. He casually refined it to the effect of a fragrant pill. Why is there still one left? You pinch a black cloth from your ring and take it out of the autumn. The surface of the pill was even stained with dust or mold-like substances. He held it up to his nose and sniffed it. It has been sitting too long. It's starting to grow a bit hairy. You look utterly disgusted. This hairy lung pill. Toward the already unconscious path. Nangong Jung, barely clinging to life, handed it over at the end of his mouth. Forget it. Trash is just trash. Point. Making do is better than having no walls. Making do is better than having no walls. This remark reached the ears of the Nangong family members. They made their eyes twitch sharply. What kind of single thing is that? Pitch black, with unknown spots on the surface. The selling quality is so bad that even street scammers can show it. Would get beaten to death. The most outrageous part is, Ancestor, you admit you yourself that this thing has been sitting too long. Hide your hair. Is this for eating? Is this trying to make Zhu Chang die faster? Ancestor, the most senior Grand Elder, summon your lifelong courage. He spoke tremblingly. This thing might be highly toxic. The team leader can no longer tolerate any more turmoil. Nangong Linger was so frightened that Huarong lost her composure and rushed forward to support her. Ancestor, I beg you, Grandpa, please have this for my father. This isn't a life-saving gesture. It's clearly a death rush. What's all the fuss? You raised your eyebrows and glared at them impatiently. I don't know the pill I practiced. Besides, he's already like this. Could it get worse? Let's just give it a try. After saying this, he gave no one a chance to react at all. With a flick of his finger, the hairy lung pill turned into a streak of dark light, accurately and flawlessly swallowed into the mouth of the already unconscious Nangong Junyi. It slid down his throat. It's over. The hearts of all the Nangong family members. It instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Nangong Linger's vision went black. He nearly fainted. The team leader could have held out a little longer. Now it is crowned with this mysterious Dudan. He feared his soul would soon pass away. However, just as everyone was sinking into despair, the sound changed to a trembling voice. Just moments ago, his aura was still blazing. Nangong Military Art School, whose physical functions have stagnated. Suddenly, a golden light burst forth from his body. Fast and majestic, the breath of life that is extremely pure, burst forth from within him. It formed a visible green beam of light, rising from the heavens. It instantly stained Tianqiong into a jade green hue. Rumble, the entire base of the Nangong family mansion. It is the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within 10,000 miles. At this moment, a complete riot erupted. They are drawn by it. It converged into a surging spiritual energy arena. It poured back into Nangong Juanli's body. His body, withered and decayed by burning his soul. It quickly becomes full at a speed visible to the naked eye. Full, a head full of white hair, gathered on his shoulders, turned jet black. The wrinkles on her face quickly smoothed out. In just a few breaths, the dying, aged clan chief, it had turned into a dignified face, a middle-aged man with vigorous vitality. This is the chieftain's wound. All healed. It's not just about getting better. This aura, this pressure. Oh my god, everyone stood there stunned. Even his breathing stopped. But this was far from over. The body of the barbarian military service, under the immense influx of spiritual energy, the aura rises step by step. Tianzuan mirror at its peak. Breakthrough. The bottleneck was no match for the domineering medicinal power within him. They scattered on the spot, far surpassing the celestial venerable imperial might with the profound immortal divinity. It spread from him. Emperor, sovereign realm. No, still a little short. It was half an emperor. Oh heavens. The clan leader was not only injured and in a difficult situation, still turning misfortune into blessing. He stepped into the half-level emperor realm. The entire Nangong family was filled with excitement. From the disparate abyss of the tribes, breaking through the main pillar in place. This stark contrast. This caused many elders and disciples to become overly emotional. He was sobbing uncontrollably. Nangong Linga stared blankly as she regained her peak, even stronger than his father at his peak. Tears of joy couldn't stop sliding down. He rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This is a hairy piece of trash casually tossed out by our ancestors. If it hadn't grown hair, that would be unacceptable. Amidst the atmosphere of joy throughout the venue. But you frown. He looked at Nangong Junyi with a face full of disdain. The loss of efficacy is also too severe. A 9-turn golden belt. He only managed to barely grasp the threshold of the Emperor. He hadn't even broken through the true Emperor mirror. The quality of the intensification is too strong. It seems that the pills he will refine in the future, at most, it would be stored for 10 or 20,000 years before being eaten. Otherwise, it would all become trash. With this casual mutter, but it clearly transmitted the realm that had just stabilized. Nangong Junyi's ears opened wide. Nangong Junyi's body was united. 9-turn golden elixirs. That is not just found in ancient myths and legends, claimed to bring the dead back to life. White bones come alive. The supreme divine pill that mortals swallow and instantly become immortals. This is something that exists only in fantasy. It actually existed. Moreover, in the eyes of the ancestors, this thing will be stored for 10 or 20,000 years. And that's it. Trash. Nangong Junba's worldview was completely overturned. He calmed his heart. He straightened his robe. Then there was a splash. Kneeling on both knees with utmost respect before you, he performed with great force, bowing his whole body to the ground. The unfilial descendants were assigned to military service in Nangong and paid his respects. The first-generation patriarch. His kneeling. Behind him were all the Nangong family members, whether elders or disciples. Everyone seemed to wake from a dream. A large group of people knelt down in unison. His expression was fanatic and awe-inspiring. We wait. Greetings to the patriarch. A deafening voice, radiating the excitement of surviving a disaster, and heartfelt reverence. You have gone blank. He signaled them to get up. All right. They are already quite old. Kneeling on the ground, forming a river of dignity. You keep your hands behind your back. He couldn't compete with Nangong Junyi. Kicked his foot. Get up, and above the beam. Ancestor. Nangong Junyi looked up. Her eyes were slightly red. This is a military duty without ability, bringing shame to the family. Exhausted. Ancestor, you slept for 80,000 years. And you still have to worry about us unfilial descendants. All right, stop with all these empty talk. You keep your iron mouth out. He interrupted him. Let me ask you, that so-called Li family, is it impressive? How dare you ride right over my Nangong family's head, to relieve yourself? If we don't scatter their entire clan to ashes, I can't sleep soundly at night. Just as the Nangong family was celebrating the return of the ancestor, it was hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Nangong family, inside a majestic city suspended above the clouds. The Li family. Farewell to the forbidden grounds. One is called All the hair and beards are white. An elderly man dressed in a gold-threaded robe. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, in front of rows of neatly arranged soul lamps. Suddenly, crack, crack, crack. A series of crisp sounds shattered the tranquility of Zhu Ci. The old man's eyes widened. He saw the soul lantern stand ahead, representing the Li family's envoy, Li Xianfeng, and the soul lamps of the dozen or so guards he led. At the same time, everything shattered. The flame went out. No intention of surviving or returning. How is that possible? The old man suddenly stood up. The evening face was gloomy. Li Xianfeng is a powerful figure respected by heaven. From here to the Nangong family, it was simply about accepting a family that had already declined. How could it possibly fall? And all the guards along with it, all died in an instant. The Nangong family, except for the failed attempt to challenge the emperor, the impending fall of Nangong Juanli. Who else has that ability? Something happened. The old man's roar. The sound echoed throughout the entire Li family. A moment later, Shu Ji was a figure whose aura was equally formidable, appears within the ancestral text, and the leading person. He was the current head of the Li family. Li Qianxiong, when he saw the shattered soul lamp scattered across the ground, his face turned ashen. The Nangong family. Li Qianxiong's voice was filled with suppressed fury. What a Nangong family! What audacity! Not only do you dare to defy the will of the Li family, and you still dare to kill an envoy from my Li family, head of the household. There was something fishy about this matter. The earlier elder, Chen Sheng, analyzed Li Xuanfeng's strength. It was enough to sweep through the entire Nangong family. They have no strength to resist, unless some unknown variable emerges. HMPH, no matter what variables there are. How dare you oppose my Li family? There is only one outcome. Li Qianxiong's eyes were filled with courage. Nangong Jun's first attempt at the emperor failed. He deserved to die. They were courting death. He took out a blood-red communication jade talisman from his pocket. Without the slightest hesitation, crush it directly. Transmit my orders. Immediately start the nail, and yielded to Nangong Bo. Proceed according to the original plan. I want Nangong Junyi to die. Kidnap Nangong Linga and bring him to my Li family. In front of the world. Reduced to my son's plaything. I want the entire Nangong family. Not even chickens or dogs remain. The Nangong family mansion. Before the farewell, amidst a festive atmosphere, on the face of Grand Elder Nangong Bo, but there was not a trace of joy to be seen. Instead, it was filled with gloom and anxiety. Just now, in his arms, Naimai was carrying a secret message talisman from the Li family. Suddenly feeling hot. The message is simple. The Nangong army had already been disbanded. Immediate action. Control the family. And presented it to Nangong Linga. After the matter is accomplished, you are the new master of the Nangong family. Nangong Bo's heart flushed with excitement. He waited for this day. We've waited far too long. He didn't notice Dr. Nangong at all. He had already broken through to the half-level Emperor Sovereign level. And I never saw you wave your hand to destroy the heavenly heroes. The terrifying scene of killing the celestial venerable with a snap of his finger. He knew his opportunity had come. The Li family. That was a top-tier force guarded by a true emperor. Nangong military doctor's assault failed. The fall of the Nangong family was already a foregone conclusion. He stepped forward now. It means following the will of fate. Everyone, be quiet. A hug filled with the pressure of a celestial venerable rang out, interrupting the crowd's cheers. Everyone turned around in astonishment. He saw the Grand Elder, Nangong Bo. He brought along dozens of his trusted followers. He walked over with a displeased expression. He faintly surrounded Nangong Junyi and the others in the center. Nangong Bo, what do you mean by that? A Grand Elder raised his brows and greeted him with a deep smile. Nangong Bo stood with his hands behind his back. A cold smile as if holding the authority of the throne hung on his face. He first glanced at the breakthrough that had just happened. Nangong Junyi, whose breath was still somewhat unstable. His eyes were filled with disdain. The returning light and reflected light are gone, burning my soul and still wanting to live. How ridiculous. Then, his gaze fell on Nangong Linga, full of greed and passion. What does that mean? Nangong Bo laughed heartily toward the sky. Vitality shakes the four fields. Of course, it's about setting things right. Find a new path for our Nangong family. The Southern Palace Army righteousness. He pointed at Nangong Junyi. His expression was extremely proud. His tone was superior. Failing to challenge the emperor. He is already a criminal of the Nangong family. Now, the Li family's army is pressing at the border. All because of you alone. What face do you still have? Sitting in the clan leader's seat. Starting today, I, Nangong Bo, will take over the Nangong family, leading the family, and pledged allegiance to the Li family. You traitor, things that struggle to crawl outside. The family has taken good care of you. You dare to collude with foreign enemies. Nangong Junyi trembled all over. Even the realm of Dangdang breaking through was somewhat unstable. He never expected it. At the family's most critical moment, jumping out to stab in the back. It was none other than this high-ranking and powerful Grand Elder. Facing the criticism of thousands, Nangong Bo should have been unafraid. Instead, he became even more proud. Those who implement things are called heroes. A bunch of idiots. Following Nangong Junyi, there was only one way out. Death. Only me. Only then can the Nangong family survive, he said. He then walked step by step toward Nangong Linga. Here comes another overly impatient one. You dig into Obwa. He tilted his head and looked at Nan Gongbwa. He asked with an innocent expression. The head became the Li family. It's the same bunch of trash I just crushed to death. Nan Gongbwa was taken aback. Immediately, he was furious. Where did this childish child come from? How dare you spout nonsense here? Get out of my way. He doesn't know you at all. He just thought he was some reckless bystander. Take him down for me. Life and death are not mattered. Uncle Nan couldn't be bothered to waste any more words. He gave the order directly. He wanted to kill the chicken of the Jin Marquis, with the blood of this youth, to establish the authority of his new clan leader. Several trusted aides behind him. Ning smiled and lunged at you. Wait. You suddenly raise your hand. Those trusted aides instinctively stopped in their tracks. I thought you were demanding jail, but you pointed to the ground beneath their feet. His expression was strange. I advise you, it's best not to move around. Otherwise, that's what ruined the formation I personally set up back then. You will die a terrible death. Formation. Nan Gongbo looked as if he'd just heard the biggest joke. He burst into wild laughter. Ha ha ha. Kid, are you talking in your sleep? Return the formation you set up yourself. Who do you think you are? The founding ancestor of our Nangong family? The traitors behind him. They joined in laughter, looking at you with an expression as if you were an idiot. Nan Gongbo's laughter faded. His face was full of cruelty and pleasure. Since you mentioned formations, then I'll make sure you die with peace of mind. He stomped his foot heavily. He pinched his hands and made a strange reaction. He shouted firmly, I am the Earl of Nangong, welcoming 100 years, pouring in countless effort. I've already transformed the mountain protecting formation beneath the ancestral temple into my own, exclusive to killing formations. Today, with the blood of you stubborn people, to pay tribute to my heartfelt words, duity and demonic light array, rose, as soon as he finished speaking. Buzz. Erupting from deep underground, it turned into an inverted blood-red light. You will be the one. Lan Gong Junyi and everyone else. Everything was enveloped in it. Some of the lower-level Lan Gong family descendants. It was simply swept by that blood-red light. He let out a miserable scream. His skin quickly became dry and flat. Rot. All his vital blood was quickly drained. Not good. Quickly activate spiritual power to resist. Lan Gong Junyi's face changed dramatically. He hurriedly erupted with the pressure of half an emperor, forming a shield. Protect the clan members around you. But even so, under the relentless erosion of the blood-red killing formation, his shield also made a sizzling sound. Light flickered. It seemed he wouldn't hold out much longer. It's useless. Nangong gained little profit outside the battlefield. His face was maniacal. Military service at Nangong. This killing array was improved by me based on the ancient demon palace, specifically to counter them. Your Nangong family's orthodox cultivation method. The more you resist, the faster you die. See that? This is what happens when you defy me. As for you, kid, he turned toward the center of the formation, that one from beginning to end. All the young men looked calm. Yin smiled. You will be the first sacrifice refined into blood. He activated the formation. Countless blood-red beams swept across the sky, shooting toward you. However, faced with such a terrifying attack that could crush even a celestial venerable into powder, but you don't even bother to move. You just keep your head down, looking at the blood-red formation patterns beneath his feet, frowning deeply, violently displaying the heavenly affairs. He was practically a treasure of the violent palace. You find it hard to speak to yourself. His voice was tinged with regret. The 9 palaces spirit-gathering and spirit-nourishing formation I once had under my command, welcoming the power of the stars in the 9th heaven, the source of the earth's spiritual veins, nurturing the spirit of future generations. Wumoto Peijen is a top-tier Huzu Grand formation. How did 80,000 years pass? It was all twisted by you unfilial descendants. Already raised his head. He looked at Nangongbwa, who was laughing widely outside the formation. The core node of spiritual energy circulation. It was changed to a demonic path hub that absorbs the essence blood of living beings. The power of the stars that nurtures the soul. It turned into filthy demonic light that corroded the primordial spirit. You care about this full of loopholes. The energy efficiency is less than 1/10,000th of the original. A piece of trash that can't even blow up a toilet. Called the peerless killing formation. Every time you say something, Uncle Nan's expression grew even darker. When you finished speaking, Lan Gongbo's face had turned the color of pork liver, startled and angry. What nonsense is this kid talking about? How could he possibly know the original structure of this formation? Impossible. He must be talking nonsense. Trying to shake my heart. Full of nonsense. Die for me. Lan Gong was furious and enraged. He poured all his spiritual power into the formation. In an instant, blood-soaked and grand rewards, the power of the entire killing formation, pushed to the limit, seeing that destructive bloody light. It will completely engulf you. Sigh. Forget it. You sigh. It seems she has lost the last bit of her heart. I originally wanted to keep it as a keepsake for you all. Since it was changed like this, keeping it still would be an eyesore. Better to ruin it. After speaking, under everyone's shocked gaze, you slowly lift your right foot, then gently tap down. There was a soft thud. A muffled thud rang out. No earth-shattering explosions. There was no catastrophic energy outburst. There was only a transparent ripple almost invisible to the naked eye, centered on the soles of your feet. It spread silently. Wherever the ripples passed, the fierce, violent blood-red formation patterns collapsed, disappearing without a trace. That blood-red light capable of destroying everything, and vanished into thin air. The entire so-called absolute heaven demonic light array, beneath this lightly brushed corner. And the troops all fled and fell apart. Nan Gongbo outside the formation. The wild laughter and quarrel on his face abruptly stopped. The dozens of traitors behind him, the pride and cruelty on his face were also frozen there. Their brains. He hadn't had time to deal with this bizarre scene. That transparent ripple. It had silently swept past their bodies. No explosions. No bloodstains. Nan Gongbo and all his followers were in the breeze. From head to toe, inch by inch, it fell apart. It turned into a pile of fine fly ash, drifting through the air, and his spirit was completely destroyed, selling ancient power. Not even a trace was left in this world. A moment later, you brushed the dust off your pant leg that didn't even exist. He didn't care at all. You turn around. He looked at the dazed Nangong Junyi. All right, the house was cleaned up. Now tell me, where is that Li family? After all this effort, I'm hungry. Let's go to their place. Let's have a simple meal. Go to their home. Let's have a simple meal. That sentence was light and uncertain, if it were in the ears of the elders of the Nangong army and Iha, but it made them all shiver together. The simple meal the ancestors mentioned. Could it be that the entire Li family was about to be turned upside down? Nangong Junyi's face flushed with excitement, just as I was about to say something. A declaration of determination, for example, willing to lead a horse and drop the lantern for the ancestor. But just then, the sky suddenly pressed down without warning. Not the kind of case that darkens the sky, but rather a shadow so vast it was hard to imagine. Shots quickly spread from the skyline, completely swallowing the sunlight. An overwhelming sense of oppression descended directly from the sky. The entire Nangong city trembled under this overwhelming presence. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The muffled rumbling roared far and near. It was the sound of countless giants breaking through the sea of clouds. Nangong Jun looked up and saw the scene in the sky. The confidence that had just surged due to the breakout vanished. Above the dim sky, dozens of massive African ships, all pitch black, float in the air. Its appearance was terrifying. Every African ship's bow is carved with a plum blossom that bears its teeth and claws. On both sides of the ship stood people wearing hanging armor. A soldier with a fierce aura, surprise and avoidance of emptiness. Armor gleamed and pierced the eyes. Those dozens of African ships are united, the pressure radiating out. It was even more powerful than Li Xuanfeng's heavenly venerable alone, and 10 times stronger, 100-fold. Yes, it was the Li family's Black Cloud warship, a senior teacher exclaimed in surprise. There was fear in his voice. Every warship is comparable to a strike of power from a heavenly venerable. They actually deployed the entire Vanguard fleet. It's over. Now it's completely over. The Nangong family members who had just escaped danger. He fell into despair again. Half-step Emperor Sovereign is very strong, but when faced with such a force born specifically for war, a weapon of killing and destruction, or dozens of flags, all they could do was be worn down to death. The male Lord Linger's face was drained of color. He tightly grabbed the sleeve of the male grandfather Junyi. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Father, don't be afraid. The noble lord commanded Ichiang and remained calm and composed. He protected his daughter behind him, but his own trembling hands. But it betrayed the unease in his heart. He looked up at the dark battle axis. A resolve to die ignited in his eyes. Even if he died in battle today, he also had to fight for the ancestor and his daughter a chance to escape. Amidst this tense moment, the atmosphere was at its most tense. An inappropriate yawn rang out lazily. Seriously, you rubbed your eyes? He looked completely annoyed. Can you even have a proper meal? You glanced up at the majestic fleet in the sky. He curled his lips in disdain. Such a grand spectacle, flying slowly, so noisy. He had originally planned to go straight to their lair. Encountering flying is too flashy. It doesn't fit my low-key style. Muttering to himself. On one hand, she was looking at herself. He started rummaging through the ordinary storage ring. Nangong Junyi and Nangong Linga were both stunned. Ancestor, what time is it now? The enemy army was completely crushed. Why are you still struggling over whether to be high profile or not? Under the confused gazes of the crowd, you finally pulled something out of the ring. That was a photo that looked like it. Extremely shabby woodworking. The palace body is made of some unknown, withered yellow wood. There were even several small holes in the insect pillars on top. The palace title isn't some kind of heavenly silkworm silk, treasures like dragon scarves. It was just an ordinary Massachusetts tube that looked ordinary. The whole bow radiates that I am very cheap. I have a fragile breath. Found it. You nod in satisfaction. He shook the woodworking in his hand. Fortunately, the tools used to hunt wild boars in the back mountain are still there. You fumbled through the ring for a long time. He pinched out an equally plain wooden arrow. There wasn't even a metal tip on the arrowhead. It's just sharpened wood. The entire crowd was silently crushed. Nangong Juanli's eyes nearly popped out. Nangong Linga opened her mouth in shock and disgust. All the elders and disciples were stunned on the spot. Use this. With this, it looks like it would fall apart with a gust of wind. Hunting as a carpenter. To deal with those dozens of war giant swords in the sky that can flatten mountains. Ancestor, have you slept for 80,000 years? Are you out of your mind? Ancestor. The voice of the Blue Palace military officer trembled. This thing is only afraid. You tilted your head. She gave him a strange look. This function is really useful. Pulling it up is easier, and also light and convenient. As he spoke, in front of everyone, he placed the wooden sword on the bowstring, slowly pulled it open. No magical fluctuations. No spiritual energy gathering. No heaven or earth is ever considered. You're just that simple. Effortlessly. The woodwork that looks like it was almost impossible to forget, stretched into a full moon. Then you slightly lift your head. He aimed at the iron fleet, which shrouded the sky in the sky. All right, clearing the venue. You can get ready to eat. Ha ha ha. Look at what that idiot down below is doing. Above the black clouds atop the warship, a general of the Li family noticed the tiny figure on the ground. When he sees your movements clearly, a piercing laugh erupted instantly. He took a carpenter's ticket. He wanted to shoot us with woodwork. Are you crazy? Where did this idiot come from? Is there no one left in the Blue Palace family to this extent? Someone, lock onto that idiot for me. No energy needed to cook the cannon. He casually gave him a spirit-like cannon. Smash him to pieces. The Li family soldiers aboard the warship. Each of them wore cruel smiles on their faces. They didn't even care about the people on the ground. In their view, the Nangong family had become prey at the mercy of others. Today is the day the Li family will make a name for themselves. The day of completely swallowing up the Nangong family. However, at the very moment the general gave the order, just as countless soldiers were preparing to witness a bloody massacre, the fingers had been released. A buzzing sound was so faint it was almost inaudible. The ordinary wooden sword slipped out of its bit. It did not turn into a flowing light. It did not tear apart the sky. It didn't even cause any fluctuations in spiritual power. It's just that quiet, leisurely flying toward the sky. The speed was so slow, even an ordinary dancer can easily dodge it. Ha! That's it. The Li family generals on the warship laughed so hard they were almost in tears. I thought I had some trump card, so it was all for fun. But his laughter lasted only half a second, and abruptly stopped, because he discovered, the slow wooden sword flew into the air, suddenly disappeared. It's not so fast you can't see it, but out of thin air, from everyone's perspective, from all the divine senses probing, completely gone. Immediately, all the Li family members present were shocked to their core. The sky remained unchanged. No explosions, no firelight, no energy storms, but the one in the very center. It is also the largest flagship-class Black Cloud warship. Its sturdy hull, forged from millennia-old black iron, it began to disintegrate silently dissipated. It all started with the competing character Li at the bow. Black iron, vibrating pattern, deck, mast. Everything is quietly becoming the most primitive example. Positioned in the void, the soldiers on the ship, the mockery and arrogance on his face remained stiff. Their bodies and armor were on them. The weapon in his hand also began to disintegrate in sync with him. No pain, no screams, not even realizing that he was dying. They just are. That's it. The breakdown did not stop. That invisible force of disintegration, centered on the first warship, it rapidly spread outward. The second one, the third one, the 10th ship, one black cloud warship after another. Those war beasts that made the Nangong family feel utterly hopeless. At this moment, fragile like a paper toy, they came one after another. Quiet and elegant, erased in the sky. Not a speck of dust was left behind. Thousands of elite soldiers from the Li family, along with their souls, their pride, everything about them, all within this eerie silence, completely returning to nothingness. Just 3 breaths before and after. Just moments ago, a dark cloud pressed down on her. The arrogant Li family vanguard fleet. Just like that, they vanished completely. The sky returned to its deep blue again. The sky was left with only a clear shore. Only a single strand stretched across the sky. A deep, unhealed crack, existing in midair, gulping in front of the Nangong family residence. No one knew who it was. He swallowed hard. Besides that, there was not a single sound. All the sons and elders of the Nangong family, each one tilted their heads back, mouth open, maintain the same posture, standing frozen in place. Their brains, it has completely stopped functioning. A single sword strike was just so ordinary, destroyed a fleet. Nangong Jun's heart pounded like thunder. He looked down at his cheap ancestor. He looked up again at the shocking spatial rift in the sky. He only realized his own half-step emperor sovereign cultivation. It seemed utterly ridiculous. Nangong Linga's reaction was the most exaggerated. He rolled his eyes. Her small body swayed. He was directly witnessed by this scene that exceeded the limits of his understanding. He was so scared he fainted. Fortunately, Nangong Jun was quick and quick-witted. He caught him in one swift motion. In the silent atmosphere of the entire venue, you withdraw your gaze. Then he looked serious. He said to Nangong Jun, who was already stunned beside him, "Look, I told you. This function is really useful. Saves effort. Approved. The effect is decent." Nangong Jun opened his mouth. Not a single word came out. He could only nod frantically. Very useful. It's so useful. This is no bow used to hunt wild boars. This is clearly a godlike weapon that can pierce the heavens. All right. Even the flies are swatted to death. Bow and arrow have been put back into the ring. He clapped his hands. Then his gaze turned to the distant east. Now, no one disturbed our meal. Let's go. Leaving the Li family. The Li family. That majestic giant city suspended above the clouds. At this moment, a heavy, oppressive atmosphere was enveloped. Zhu Xi advanced into the territory. Bang, 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 bang. HMPH. On the soul lamp stand. It represents the soul lantern of thousands of soldiers of the Li family's vanguard fleet. Within just a few breaths, they went out in patches. Finally, there was a loud crack, representing the supreme commander of this operation, a soul lamp belonging to a core elder of the Li family. It also shattered and turned into chicken powder. The entire army was wiped out. Not a single one escaped back. Not responsible for guarding or obstructing resignations. The elder let out a piercing roar. He rolled and crawled out of the situation. The voice has changed tone. Something big has happened. Vanguard fleet. The Vanguard fleet is completely gone. The news quickly spread throughout the Li family. The Li family's first-generation main hall. Li Tianxiong sat upright on the family head's throne, expressionless. Below, dozens of elders of the Li family were as silent as cicadas, not even daring to breathe loudly. At the center of the main hall, kneeling was a trembling red empress. He was the only one because the distance was too great. Those who narrowly escaped with their lives. I've said it again. Li Tianxiong's voice grew heavy. It contained immense anger. What has been seen? The Red Empress trembled all over. With a mournful face, he used secret techniques to observe the scene from afar. He repeated it once more. The small one. I only saw the Nangong family's side. There was a person. He pulled open a carpenter's work. Then the fleet was gone. The sky seemed to split open. Carpentry. A long-haired man couldn't help but laugh out loud. Absurd. What kind of carpenter could wipe out an entire Li family fleet with a single arrow? Are you at a disadvantage? I misread it. Enough. Li Tianxiong clapped his hands and bowed his hand. The pressure of Kongdu, a half-step emperor, erupted with a thunderous roar. The entire hall buzzed with noise. His eyes were bloodshot. Clash with the weak wind demon. Of course, he didn't believe in carpentry. In his view, there is only one explanation for this. Ancient forbidden qi. Li Tianxiong uttered these 4 words. His eyes were full of greed and cruelty. That group of dying losers from the Blue Palace family. They must have mobilized their own families. I don't know which chicken foot it came from. Li dug it up. Ancient forbidden qi, which can only be used once. They thought so. Can you really send down the Li family? Naive, Foolish. They are courting their own destruction. One sword can strike at negativity. A fleet's breath-free air. Not only did he not make Li Tianxiong back down, instead, it made him even more envious. As long as he obtained this forbidden breath, the Li family even has a chance to challenge them. Those truly immortal sacred sites. Transmit my orders. Li Tianxiong suddenly stood up. The voice echoed throughout the entire giant city. Activate all war reserves. Gather all the elders in seclusion. Mobilize all of the Li family's combat strength. 100,000 serious army. Gather immediately. I want to clear the season. I want to let the Nangong family from this land completely erased. Every blade of grass and every tree, every brick and tile, none of them can be left behind. I want everyone in the world to see it. The consequences of opposing the Li family. Rumble. At his command, the entire floating giant city, it moved. Countless powerful auras radiated from him, rising from various closed gates, the city walls and the lower chambers. The dusty gates of the barracks suddenly burst open. Clad in heavy armor, 100,000 troops dissipated by murderous energy. The murderous aura soared straight to the heavens. This time, it was no longer a test. This is the Li family. This giant entrenched in a region. A light strike that blocks everything. The Nangong family mansion. Backyard. Zila. Zila. A Saint Street beast red swallow porcupine that had just been cleaned up. Placed over a campfire. Grill until glossy. An enticing fragrance filled the entire courtyard. You're holding a small brush. Leisurely brushing homemade honey sauce onto the pork. He was humming an unknown tune. Right beside you. Nangong Junyi was so anxious he was a burly man. Spinning in circles. Ancestor, oh dear. How do you still have the mood? Barbecue here. Just now, he had already passed through the family's security formation. He sensed the overwhelming arrival from the east. An undisguised terrifying pressure. The Li family. It emerged from the Qing dynasty. That pressure. Compared to the previous vanguard fleet, it's 100 times more terrifying. The pressure was immense. You don't even look up. Flip the roast pork. He nodded and took out another handful of coming from his ring. Sprinkle evenly over the roast pork. It was a bit rushed because of the hassle. Nangong Junyi looked at his ancestor's leisurely and contented demeanor. He opened his mouth but couldn't get the words out. That's an army of 100,000, and even half an emperor personally leading the team. You finally finished sprinkling the seasoning. You clapped your hands. He looked up at Dongfang and saw the faint lines of darkness already visible. Then he turned and flashed a toothy smile at Nangong Junyi. Don't rush, let them fly a little longer. My meat is about to be grilled. Up in the sky, the black line formed by dozens of black cloud warships pressing together at the border. It rapidly expanded in the view of the Nangong family members. A terrifying, murderous aura, separated by hundreds of miles, sweeping like a raging wind. The flags beneath the Nangong family mansion fluttered fiercely. It sent chills down everyone's spine. Here it comes. They really came. An elder's lips trembled. His face was ashen as death. A newly risen hope. Once again, I was shattered by the merciless reality. Nangong Juanli's heart was pounding wildly. He looked at the warship sweeping across the land in the east. Even breathing became incredibly difficult. That was not a vanguard fleet. That was the entire strength of the Li family emerging from the Qing dynasty. On the massive flagship leading the way, a deep aura arose, a figure standing proudly as his own. It was none other than Li Tianxiong, the head of the Li family, and right behind Li Tianxiong, there were also several auras no weaker than ordinary celestial venerables, not to mention the dense pack. The 100,000 serious army was arrayed and pressing down on the enemy. Such power, it was enough to wipe out 10 Nangong families from the earth completely. Ancestor, you. Nangong Junyi anxiously turned to you. He had only been halfway through his sentence. It got stuck in his throat. A fragrant aroma filled the air. The heat was just right. This relaxed and contented demeanor, and the distant, earth-shattering formation, creating an absurd contrast to the extreme. Nangong Junyi was breaking down with extreme aggression. Heard from the sound. At that moment, the Li family's army was already on the verge of the city. The massive fleet covered the entire sky. The shadow below completely enveloped Nangong City. Daylight instantly turned into night. Li Tianxiong stands in the hands of the flagship. His gaze swept over the tiny Nangong family residence below. In the end, It landed on that heaven-piercing endless path, on the spatial cracks that have not yet fully healed. A sharp pain shot through his chest and foot. It was heartbreaking for the fleet's loss. Once again, there was uncontrollable fanaticism and greed. Ancient tranquility. It must be that the Nangong family used some kind of one-off ancient tranquility. Nangong military arts. Li Tianxiang's voice carried the supreme pressure of a half-emperor venerable, turning into rolling waves of darkness, echoing above Nangong city, because the Nangong family had suffered from stubborn resistance, and his crime deserves death 1,000 times. I am giving you one last chance. Hand over that ancient tranquility. Only then can the noble camp be fully satisfied. I may consider it, leaving you a bloodline. His voice was arrogant, filled with tongue and compassion. The fate of the Nangong family was now in his hands. Nangong Jun was trembling all over with rage. Zheng Yu shouted angrily. So noisy. You finally eat your first slice of grilled meat. You chew. His brows furrowed slightly. A good meal. There are always flies buzzing. Truly an ordinary person. You whispered softly, but it was clearly transmitted up into the sky. In Li Tianxiang's ears, Li Tianxiang's face suddenly darkened. Flies. He was the dignified head of the Li family. Half of it could not match the honor, yet people even called her a fly, courting death. Li Tianxiang laughed in anger. It seems you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Since you have such confidence in the inner sword forbidden artifact, then let this game show you what it is. What is true power? He raised both hands toward the sky. He roared loudly, respectfully requesting the sacred treasure of foot stabilization. Tower of Heaven locking. Now, at his command, the void behind him suddenly folded, one towering 1,000 zhong high. The hollow body is forged 9 times by an unknown nerve. A 7-story pagoda inscribed with billions of runes slowly emerged. The moment the pagoda appeared, a force suppressed the heavens and earth. The terrifying power sealing the eternal universe descended with a thunderous roar. Within 100 li radius, space was completely sealed off. All the spiritual energy stopped flowing. There is no turning back in this world. The Mangong army was under the heavy pressure of 10,000 troops. Even moving a finger became a luxury. The spiritual power within his body was forcibly restrained. It was completely unfunctional. Yes, it's the Li family's locking heaven tower. A grand elder summoned all his strength. He struggled to utter a few words. The voice was filled with endless despair. Legend has it that this pagoda is here. It was obtained by the first ancestor of the Li family from an ancient trace, with full force. Even a true emperor-level expert could suppress them for a while. It's over. This was the only thought in everyone's mind. Facing such a legendary supreme artifact, any resistance seemed weak and powerless. Ha ha ha. Li Tianxiang looked at the desperate expressions of the crowd below. He burst into hearty laughter. Who still dares to say this work is a fly? He waved his hand grandly. The sky-locking tower carried the momentum of crushing everything, heading toward the Nangong family residence, slowly suppressing downward. The pagoda body had not yet arrived. That terrifying pressure had already shattered the earth inch by inch. Countless arrow columns collapsed with a thunderous crash. The Nangong family members closed their eyes, a general waiting for death. Yet, in this apocalyptic scene, but you stood up impatiently, never stopping. Huh? You are the dust stirred up by this pressure. It was a bit annoying. It disturbs your enjoyment of delicious food. Your gaze falls on the imposing and threatening heaven-locking tower. He curled his lips. Gold and jade lie beyond it. Failure continued in the midst of it. It's done so flashily. Looks good but is useless. You muttered. Then bend down. Casually from the campfire, he pulled out a branch that was still burning. The other end was a fire poker stained with barbecue oil. Under the blank gazes of Nangong Junyi and the others, amid the shocked expressions of Li Tianxiang and his 100,000-strong army, you're carrying that greasy fire poker in your arms, facing the divine artifact in the sky that suppresses eternity. He tossed it aside. Go. The fire poker traced a winding and twisting trajectory. Not only does it show the slightest imposing authority, it leisurely flew into the sky. Li Tianxiang was about to mock his overestimating behavior. The next moment, smack, a soft sound, the tip of a fire poker. It gently touched the tower of Suotian Tower. Then click, click, bang. That statue was said to suppress the emperor, a clan artifact forged from the immortal nerve. Suotian Tower on top of the tower. Suddenly, a fine crack appeared. Immediately after, cracks spread wildly in all directions. Finally, in the complete silence of the audience, thunderous shattering, billions of runes vanished in smoke. Countless nerve fragments scattered and shot out. That legendary artifact that the Li family was so proud of. Just like that, it was shattered by a firewood stick. The Tower of Soshan shattered, transformed into a vast stream of light blooming across the sky. Afterwards, He returned to serenity. The entire venue fell silent. On the sword of the seat, the arrogant look on Li Tianxiong's face vanished completely, full of shock and incomprehensibility. Behind him stood the 100,000 Heavenly King's army. He didn't even notice the weapon dropping to the ground, just gazing blankly at the sky. That's the Locking Heaven Tower. It was the Li family that had passed down the tradition for tens of thousands of years. It is hailed as the strongest foot control tool in the trump card. That's it. It was pulled out of the fire. The fire poker was shattered. The world is crazy. Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. Li Tianxiong was the first to react during the conversation. He let out a hysterical scream. His eyes were bloodshot. He stared intently at the girl below who was leisurely patting her hand and reading Shangyo. Hallucination. All of this must be an illusion. However, the backlash from the shattered divine energy made him spit out a mouthful of heartfelt blood. My chest ached, reminding him that everything that had just happened was real. Fear. An unprecedented fear, like a cold tide. His reason was instantly overwhelmed. He finally understood. What kind of existence had I provoked? That was definitely not a junior from a male family. It was an ancient demon god disguised as a youth. Escape. Must escape. This thought had just arisen. He extinguished it himself. An invisible opportunity had locked onto him. In the face of such a being, he didn't even have the right to run. Since escape is impossible, then he had no choice but to fight to the death. Li Tianxiong's face twisted in madness. A flash of resolute ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. No matter what kind of monster you are, trying to kill me, Li Tianxiong, and make you pay the price, let my soul be drained, my essence and blood wasted. The heavenly demon disintegrated. He roared hoarsely. His body suddenly swelled. Beneath the skin, blood-red patterns lit up, a destructive aura far surpassing that of a half-step Earth sovereign. A thunderous explosion erupted from within him. He actually chose to burn everything he had without hesitation. He unleashed a forbidden secret technique that would bring mutual destruction. In the blink of an eye, his whole body was covered in a burst of blood. A terrifying energy storm swept through and stabbed forth. Even the surrounding space began to shake violently and shatter. Die. Li Tianxiong wielded power powerful enough to flatten an entire giant city. It transformed into a blood-red rainbow that tore through the sky, toward you below, charging forward wildly. This was his final blow, risking his life and dignity. Facing this world-shattering strike, the members of the Nangong family were terrified out of their wits, retreating repeatedly. Even Nangong Junyi sensed a deadly threat. Instinctively, he wanted to channel all his energy defenses. However, you are at the very center of the attack. Yet he didn't even lift his eyelids. You just sat back down by the campfire, preparing to enjoy a second slice of grilled meat. But then he was interrupted by this earth-shattering momentum. You frown. Haven't you eaten? Shout so loudly. You muttered in disdain. Then, like driving away a mortal mosquito, he raised his right hand. No charge, unprepared, just so casually. He slapped forward from a distance. He cried out crisply, a sound that was neither loud nor soft. Up in the sky, the earth-shattering mass of bloodlight suddenly stopped. Immediately after, under everyone's shocked gaze, a translucent palm print that covered half the sky appeared out of thin air, imprinted on that mass of bloodlight. No earth-shattering explosions. There is no energy to hedge the aftermath. That mass of blood-red light contained all of Li Tianxiong's life and strength. With a splash, it quietly went out. Li Tianxiong burned his soul to gain the ultimate power. In front of that palm print, it was laughably fragile. His body and his soul. All his will was under that slap. It was smoothed out with a crisp and decisive touch, so that it may not be shattered and turned into nothingness. And after that palm imprint wiped out Li Tianxiong, the momentum remains undiminished and continues downward. The earth shook violently with a rumble. Everyone looked down. On the plain 100 li in front of the Nangong family residence, a bottomless pit appeared. The shape of that giant pit. It was a crystal clear 5-finger palm print, reaching a depth of 8,000 zhong. Edges are smooth. Li Tianxiong, head of the Li family, half the emperor's sovereign. Not a speck of dust was left behind. Taken by that slap, it struck straight into the depths of the earth's core. In the sky, the 100,000 serious lords exclaimed in surprise. At this moment, it enveloped the entire world. Withdraw your hand. His expression remained as usual. You blow away the dust that doesn't exist in your palm. Finally, I could sit down peacefully. He picked up the dagger again, resting over the fragrant roast pig. Seriously, the meat was almost cold. The meat was almost cold. This is a light-hearted complaint. It fell into the ears of the Li family soldiers above. They bow their heads. Look at that bottomless palm imprint giant pit. Look up again. Look at the boy who is fully focused on cutting the barbecue. The meaning soared to the top of his head. Everyone will stay in place. Head of the household. That's it. burned everything. Jiqiong, risking his life, strikes with him. He didn't even touch a single corner of his clothes. He was slapped into the ground with a single slap. The entire crowd was silently crushed. Demon, the devil, no one knew who it was. With a voice trembling to a distortion, he spat out those two words. Spray. Panic spread. Above the flagship, a Li family general suddenly let out a sharp scream. He was completely scared out of his wits. Strange bleeding. He fell headfirst from the air. As he fell, the formation fell into chaos. Run. The family head is dead. We must run. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. The remaining 100,000 serious army. It completely collapsed. The military discipline they took pride in, their dignity as strong warriors. In the face of absolute power, it vanishes completely. Countless soldiers turned the bow of the boat. Driving Africa, they fled in all directions like madmen, recklessly taking no path. However, at that moment, the tree growls with an aged and desperate roar. Sounds rang out from several core warships. No one is allowed to run. The son of the Li family. How could they possibly flee in the face of battle? They were several senior elders of the Li family who had come with the army. Their faces are delicate, but in his eyes burned the last bit of madness. There is no turning back in today's situation, since it was inevitably a death sentence. The leading elder charged into Fengmo. He ascended into the air, and stand before all the warships. The voice was piercing. Then use the blood and bones we waited for, bringing the last hope to our Li family. He spread his arms. Brilliant blood light erupted from within his body. We are willing to use our remaining bodies to continue the line, using the soul as a shadow, respectfully inviting the first ancestor, breaking through the pass and escaping. Several other elders also flew out at the same time, ranked alongside him. His expression was utterly unparalleled. All shouted in unison, respectfully inviting the first ancestor, breaking through the pass and escaping. As soon as he finished speaking, their bodies exploded simultaneously. It transformed into the purest flesh and blood energy. It gathered into a blood-red pillar of light that pierced through heaven and earth, facing east, in the direction where the Li family gathers and is gathered, and brazenly set up a system to seize it. She is the most forbidden secretary in the Li family. Blood exchange ancestral grand array. At the cost of the core bloodline's life, forcibly awakened from sleep in the deepest part of the family's forbidden grounds. He had long ceased to concern himself with worldly affairs. The emperor respects the ancestor, who only provides the last foundation for the family's continuation. Boom rumble as the blood-red pillar of light was poured in. The distant horizon. The Li family giant city floating in the clouds. It shook violently. A vast expanse of desolation. Elderless and domineering. Far surpassing the terrifying imperial might of half an emperor venerable. He began to slowly wake up. The sky was stained blood-red. The entire land wailed under this imperial might. The true emperor. They are two completely different concepts. That was the true existence that had touched immortal divinity. With a single thought, one can alter the celestial phenomena, controlling the lives and deaths of billions of living beings. The ancestor's strength was unfathomable. But facing a true emperor, can it really be so relaxed and effortless? Nangong Junyi clenched his fists tightly. He looks at you anxiously, ready to risk everything. He also wanted to fight for the ancestor to break the ceremony. But what he saw, but you wore an expression as if your nature had been disturbed. You just cut a slice. The barbecue with a mix of fat and lean meat popped into your mouth, savoring it carefully. Hearing Nangong Junyi's exclamation, you lazily lifted your eyelids. He glanced at the cataclysmic, world-shattering scene in the distance. Then, you have gone blank, signaling Nangong Junyi to be calm. What's the rush? You swallow the roasted meat in your mouth. He picked up a pot of fruit wine from the side, poured myself a glass. Let them call out. Nangong Junyi was stunned. I just heard you continue in that tone so calm it borders on ruthlessness. You said, that way, I won't have to make the trip myself. Go dig up graves and cut trees in their lair. Eliminate the roots completely. Today is just right. Everyone was here. What kind of trouble did they take down all at once? After speaking, you actually borrowed from the storage items. He pulled out another small stool. Shusha sat down quietly. You hold your wine glass. Save the barbecue. He watched with great interest at the increasingly terrifying blood-red sky in the distance. Watching the changing horizon, The Blue Palace army was completely wiped out. He stood there in a daze, looking at their ancestors' calm and composed back, looking again at the distant figure awakening with contempt. Only one thought remained in his mind. It turns out, in the eyes of the ancestors, even the true Emperor Lord, it's just one dish in that pot. Lan Gongjian completely gave up thinking. He stared blankly at his ancestor, holding a wine glass in one hand holding the roasted meat, leisurely sitting on a small stool, a scene that was about to destroy heaven and earth before him. It was nothing more than a song and dance performance to enhance the mood. That was a true emperor. This is the legend, already touched by immortality, able to speak and follow the law, the supreme existence of negative stars in the blink of an eye. But in the eyes of the ancestor, a plate of freshly baked meat is more appealing. Boom! At that moment, the distant eastern horizon, that sky-piercing pillar of blood-red light, it was as if he had touched on some forbidden switch. The entire sky was filled with blood. In the blink of an eye, it became 100-fold richer. A vast will, awakening from slumber. It crosses endless space and time. He descended upon this world. This is not pressure. It is a form of existence itself. The moment this will awakens, the entire Qingyang continent, the wind stopped, the clouds dispersed, all things have lost their voice. All the rules, all the spiritual energy, all of them were directed toward this newly born ruler, bowing his head in submission. Within the due period, countless old monsters who watched certain death. At the same moment, they opened their eyes in shock. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Billions of demonic beasts crawled on the ground, trembling in the direction of the Li family. That is fear that comes from the very essence of life. The emperor honored the officers and soldiers. Heaven and earth share in love. Nan Gongjian felt his soul being crushed by this aura with a single point. His legs went weak. If it weren't for forcing herself to hold on with her last bit of willpower, he had long since knelt down. Behind him was a key figure from the Nangong family, collapsed in patches to the ground. I even lost the courage to look up. All sounds are advancing here, a moment when all beings surrender. Rest, rest, rest. 3 streaks of light. It sliced through the air from different directions at an astonishing speed, hovering in midair not far from the Nangong family residence. The flowing light faded away. 3 of them present their powerful aura. All were sect masters and figures at the peak of heavenly venerable cultivation. They were each in theft as the head of the Lei Gij, sect master of the 10,000 Sword sect, and the princess of Xiang Palace. These 3 great sects are ranked alongside the Li and Nangong families. It is the top force in Qingyang continent. As soon as they arrive, he felt that commanding presence. He also saw the Li family's fleet departing from the Qing dynasty, and that brutal pillar of blood-stained light. The 3 exchanged glances. He immediately understood the situation. The Li family gave birth to the emperor. Congratulations to the Li family. Congratulations to the Li family. The pavilion master of Wind and Thunder Pavilion reacted the fastest. He immediately headed toward the Li family drama city. The Gongshan performed a grand bow. The voice was loud and full of flattery. I am the pavilion of Wind and Thunder. I wish to serve as the emperor of the Li family, with horses in front and behind, sweeping away the remnants of the southern palace. Our 10,000 Sword sect, willing to follow in the footsteps of the emperor. This was the hegemonic enterprise of the Li family, offering what is but a small effort. The sect master of the 10,000 Sword sect followed closely behind. His attitude was extremely humble. The Lan clan was defeated by stubborn resistance, a crime beyond pardon. Our Xiang Palace wishes to be the vanguard, clearing obstacles for the emperor. The 3 usually perform impressive noodle peeling, a sect leader who gathers strength in his region. They were eagerly declaring loyalty to their new master. In their view, the Nangong family was already in a dead end. Rather than waiting to be reckoned with, why not take sides now? Maybe they could even have a sip of soup along with them, a share of the spoils. Nan Gongjian looked at these 3 ugly faces. The anger was so intense that the eyes felt as if they would burst. A mouthful of old blood surged onto the monkey's head. Fence-sitter, this is the top sect of Qingyang continent. Ha ha ha. All right, very good. One is old, grand, a voice devoid of any emotion. It slowly came from above the end of the sky. Every word is accompanied by the rhythm of the law. The townspeople's spirits were stirred. The wind forms the pavilion. 10,000 Sword sect, Xiang Palace, wearing this seat, after personally erasing this ant. And so on. All received praise and praise. The owner of that voice was very satisfied with the 3 of them. As the words fell, on the eastern horizon, above the floating Li family giant city, a gap was violently torn open in the space. A figure dressed in an ancient, blood-red robe. His face was withered and lofty, a figure with eyes deep and incomparably deep, slowly stepping out from within. He did not rely on any Africa. Just like that, step by step, only above the void. He walked toward the direction of the Nangong family. With every step he took, at his feet, blood-red lotuses bloomed. The laws of heaven and earth. Everyone is making way for him. He is the only one in this world. The founding ancestor of the palace camp. The palace is built for the emperor's dignity. The remaining Li family soldiers and the gatekeepers from the 3 major sects. Everyone knelt down in fanaticism. A loud voice called Coral. The shout shook the clouds. The Nangong army was also wiped out like dead ashes. He's finished. The Nangong family is finished too. In this world-destroying world, amidst the scene of all beings being defeated, you finally finished the last piece of roast pork. Bai Yu pricked his lips and finishedly. You lift your head. He glanced at the imposing presence. The blood-robed elder who was a lotus flower. He glanced again at the 3 major sects kneeling neatly on the ground. You frowned slightly, a bit puzzled. Then, you turned to look at Nangong Junyi, who is nearly destroyed. He asked seriously, "What are they doing? Still right? Are you just waiting to be beaten to death by me? Still right? Are you just waiting to be beaten to death by me?" That sentence was light and uncertain. Nangong Jun's legs went weak as soon as he heard this. He opened his mouth. A heh sound came from his throat. Not a single word came out. His eyes rolled back. It was even more decisive than his daughter, Nangong Linga, who had fainted. You gave him a strange look. I don't understand why this back's mental resilience is so poor. You shake your head. He had no choice but to stand up himself. He brushed the dust off his clothes. At this moment, the first ancestor of the Li family, Li Tsangxuan, they have crossed a long distance. It descended above the Nangong family residence. He looked down on him, overlooking everything below. His gaze first swept over the spatial rift that pierced through Qianqiong. It landed again on the huge 5-finger palm print on the plane. A faint flicker passed through his cloudy old eyes, but he didn't think much of it. In his view, this was nothing more than the Nangong family using some immense force. Exhausted all their heritage. That's what led to all of this. Just a desperate struggle. His gaze finally fell below, on the only boy still standing. They are the remnants of the Nangong family. Li Tsangxuan's voice was completely flat. High above, to force my Li family to use bloodstains to awaken this work. You died a worthy death, unexpectedly, and enriched himself here. I may grant you the title of a nobleman, leaving behind a trace of ink bloodline between his words, filled with supreme authority and grace. This has become a tremendous gift for your own wealth. Kneel, and his own wealth. These few words get into your ears. It makes you feel a bit excited. How many years has it been? No one dares to talk to you like that anymore. 80,000 years, or even longer. You can't remember. You ignored Li Tsangxuan in the sky. Instead, he looked at it with great interest. The 3 sect leaders kneeling on the ground. Hey, the 3 of you, you shouted casually. The pavilion master of Wind and Thunder Pavilion and others were immersed in the ecstatic joy of imminent rewards from the emperor. Suddenly, they heard someone calling them. Unavoidable doubts. They look up, seeing it is you. Contempt and impatience appeared on his face. Facing death, yet still daring to speak so arrogantly. Roy, in front of the emperor, how could you have the right to speak? You didn't care about their scolding at all. He simply pointed curiously at Li Tsangxuan in the sky. What did you just call him? The emperor is honored. The sect master of the 10,000 Swords sect chuckled. Ignorant fools. Even the emperor doesn't recognize him. That is the supreme existence that truly rules heaven and earth. A single thought can destroy your soul. You nod thoughtfully. He asked again. So isn't this emperor really that powerful? It's the kind of person others tell me. The kind of state where a single slap could kill me. Once this question was raised, the entire venue fell silent. The mockery on the faces of the 3 sect leaders faded. The lingering fanaticism on the Li family's military faces also faded. Even in the sky, Li Tsangxuan's expression remained indifferent. That expression that hasn't changed for 10,000 years. There were also a few flaws. What nonsense is this kid talking about? He was there, questioning the emperor's power. After a brief silence, it was a huge laugh. Ha ha ha. What did I hear? He was actually asking if the emperor's strength was formidable. This fool must have been scared out of his wits. His mind is acting crazy. It's simply a huge joke. Death was at its doorstep, still talking nonsense. The 3 sect leaders laughed heartily. Tears were almost streaming down. This was the funniest joke they'd ever heard in their lives. Amid their thunderous laughter, but you ignored it. You just lift your head. He carefully held it toward Li Tsangxuan in the sky, watching intently. You even took a few steps forward, tilting his head back. I want to see more clearly. This expression, full of curiosity. This made Li Tsangxuan feel unprecedented in his sense of absurdity and humiliation. He was a dignified emperor, Is it meant for people to observe and question them? Reckless. Li Xiangxuan's voice finally carried anger. The emperor's wrath is overwhelming, causing heaven and earth to change color. Winds and clouds rolled in. Looks like you don't know how to write the word death. However, you kept muttering to yourself. Strange. His aura was a bit stronger than the previous one, but it's not that strong. You stroke your chin. The expression on his face shifted from curiosity. Slowly, it turned into hardship. In the end, it turned into disappointment. That's it. You looked at Li Xiangxuan and gently shook your head. So the realm you mentioned that could kill me with a single slap. It looks like this. The concrete image was transmitted. This statement completely ignited the situation. Li Xiangxuan was completely furious. He has been awakening until now. He always maintained the detachment and dignity befitting an emperor. But now, he felt humiliated in public. Ants. You successfully angered this work. Li Xiangxuan's roar turned into tangible sound waves. The mountains and earth beneath the town began to crack. This work aims to keep you in endless pain, seeing his own soul with his own eyes, caught in the fire of laws and regulations. Little by little, burned to ashes, he slowly raised the withered manuscript hand. In the palm of your hand, strands of grey, flames radiating the aura of annihilation. It began to pulse slowly. That is the law of destruction. Only the emperor respects the strong and can master it. The supreme power that transcends all the Tao of heaven and earth. Looking at that wisp of flame, the smiles on the faces of the three sect leaders vanished, transformed into endless fervor and awe. This farce, it's time to end. That reckless young man will be under the fire of the emperor's laws. Not even a trace of existence will be left behind. And you just stand there quietly, watching the grey flame slowly fall. There is no fear on your face. There is no heaviness, only the anticipation that the experiment was finally about to begin. The fire of destruction of the law. It was a seemingly inconspicuous grey flame. It floated down from Li Xiangxuan's palm. No scorching heat, nor is there any violent energy, but wherever it goes, space silently fades away. Time flickered and turned pale. This is erasure at the rule level. This is because the emperor respects the strong, the foundation that dominates an era. It's over. The princess of Xiang Palace murmured to herself. His eyes were filled with a longing for that kind of power, and can die under the law. This kid is truly lucky for 3 lifetimes. Wind Thunder Gidge is the main traveler. This beard, he had already begun to make plans. How will they divide the Nangong family's territory later? They have long regarded you as dead, faced with this fire of laws capable of erasing everything. But you didn't move at all. You didn't even raise any defenses. Just standing there quietly. May it be from that grey flame. It lightly landed on his chest. Not a single faint sound was heard. When the flame touches your clothes, not even the slightest ripple was stirred. It was immediately extinguished. The whole process was quiet and eerie, like a drop of water falling into the sea. And then there was nothing more. Between heaven and earth, the aura of annihilation vanished without a trace. You looked down at your chest. The fabric there was perfectly intact, let alone burning a hole. Not even a single wrinkle. You reach out your hand. He casually flicked it in that spot. Up in the sky, the expressions on the faces of the 3 sect leaders froze in place. All the faces of the Li family military officers were equally outrageous. Li Xiangxuan, who was about to receive everyone's reverence, his face became vacant. What's going on? What about my destruction law? That could destroy all things. A law of destruction that can erase even the great Tao. How? And it was destroyed. Impossible. You carry a protective earth treasure that resists the laws. Li Xiangxuan suddenly thought of a possibility. He immediately screamed. There was a trace of panic in his voice that even he hadn't noticed. It must be so. On this kid, there must be a defensive treasure hidden far above the Tower of Heaven locking tower. Earth treasure. You look up at him. The look of expectation on his face, it completely disappeared. Replacing it, it is an indescribable sense of desolation and loneliness. You sighed softly. That sigh was not loud, yet it was clearly heard in the ears of everyone present. 80,000 years. You use a tone that is almost dreamlike. He said slowly, I always thought the outside world was dangerous. I thought that was the realm called Emperor Sovereign. He truly stands at the pinnacle of the path of cultivation. I even thought about it. If you encounter it, I need to use 30% of my strength. Only then can one barely protect themselves. Turns out I overestimated you. Your voice is very flat. This made Li Xiangxuan and the 3 sect leaders shudder all over. Overestimated. 30% of his strength was used. What exactly does this mean? What kind of monster are you? Really? In Li Xiangxuan's heart, for the first time, an emotion called fear surged. This kind of feeling, he hadn't experienced it for tens of thousands of years. He no longer held any reservations. The emperor's essence within his body burned wildly. no matter what you are. Today, we must all die. He is sworn brothers with both hands. The law of the entire sky, all of it converged under his influence. It condensed into a giant grey arrow that pierced the heavens and earth toward you, and was executed by beheading. This sword gathered all the power of his emperor lord. This single sword was enough to split the entire Nangong city along with the mountains below. However, facing a sword strike that shook the heavens and earth, you just slowly raise your right hand. He extended an index finger. Too weak. You have disappointed me. You face the giant sword of law falling from the sky. A gentle tap. There are no earth-shattering colossal statues. There are no laws to collide with the aftermath. That grey giant sword capable of slicing through the sun and moon. When it touches your fingertips, and was shattered inch by inch, turning into countless points of light scattering across the sky. That was not a power strike from an emperor at all. Fragile and fragile. Li Tsangxuan stood upright. He spat out a mouthful of golden earth blood. Her body began to tremble violently. He looked at the boy who was completely unharmed. His eyes were wide open. His eyes were filled with panic. He finally understood. Facing it yourself. He was not a cultivator at all. That's one. I can't understand it. Unable to be overruled. An invincible presence. No, he was about to beg for mercy. Your fingertips, already separated by a great distance, aimed at his forehead. An extremely delicate beam of light, shooting from your fingertips. He was unhappy. Not a single soft sound is given. Li Tsangxuan's body began from the center of his brow. A faint crack appeared. Immediately after, cracks spread throughout his body. His skills have been tempered for 10,000 years. Said to be the immortal and indestructible body of the emperor. It collapsed and shattered instantly, turning into a sky full of dust, scattered by the wind. Li Tsangxuan's body completely turned into nothingness. Heaven and earth fall silent as a crow. You slowly withdraw your finger. Your vision. He passed through the Li family soldiers who had completely lost their minds. It landed not far away. The three of them had already collapsed to the ground. On the sect leader, who was drenched in urine. You take your steps. He walked over to them at a leisurely pace. All right, warm-up ended. Now it's time to deal with you. Trash that came to you on its own. Warm-up ended. Garbage comes to your door. You take the first step. The three sect leaders collapsed to the ground, trembled violently. Yellow and white mixed with foul-smelling liquids. It flowed out from the crotch of Princess Fenglei, soaking large areas of the ground. He collapsed to the ground. Teeth chatter. The emperor was constantly killed. That's the emperor, after all. It is they who spend their entire lives looking up to them. A realm he wouldn't even dare to dream of. But there wasn't even a hint of proper resistance. No, don't come over. The sect master of the 10,000 Swords sect struggled back into the demon cave. Before the proud marshal of the former sword cultivators. Senior, please spare me. Senior, please spare me. Princess Xiangong reacted the fastest. She couldn't walk in her disheveled state, crawling on both hands and feet. He kowtowed to you like crazy. I was blind. I was bold enough to be bold. I beg you, Senior, to forgive my unrighteous cultivation. Treat me like a fart. Just let me go. Right, we're just farts. We are stinky farts. Senior, you have a lot to offer. The Prime Minister's belly can hold the message. Don't stoop to the level of us minor characters. The three powerful figures who had just been showing off their noodles were now in tears. Put on a show of disgrace. You stopped in your tracks. You look at these three faces weeping bitterly. His face showed no expression. The three sect leaders looked up. Wan Huai looked at you with curiosity, wanting to leave. You suddenly spoke up. The voice was not loud, yet it made the hearts of the three instantly stop beating. When the husband's family was divided just now, you all shouted so loudly. Now, wanting to leave. Your words, not an interrogation. It was more like a statement. State one of the things they are about to face. An incredibly harsh reality. The color on the three faces. Swish, it descends cleanly and cleanly. Their faces turn deathly pale. The escape route has been completely sealed off. Any word seems pale. The three of them gradually had bloodshot veins in their eyes. Fight him to the death. Princess Fenglei let out a beast-like roar. He suddenly leapt up from the ground. Either way, death is inevitable. I just don't believe it. He really is invincible. Escape, split up and flee. If you can run as many as possible. Then again, but the sect master of the 10,000 Swords sect made a different choice. He transformed into a streak of sword light, at the cost of burning the original wafer, heading in the opposite direction from others, and devised a mechanism to emerge. Princess Xiangong had the same thought. Purple light radiated generously. He instantly vanished into thin air. He tried to escape using the sect's secret spatial teleportation technique. Up in the sky, the Li family soldiers who had been terrified finally snapped out of it. Hurry up and start the jump. Get out of here. On the remaining warships, flashes of dazzling light lit up. Space began to fluctuate violently. They will stop at nothing. Escape this hellish prison. Tens of thousands of people fled in all directions. However, you just quietly watch this scene. You don't even bother to chase after it. You just raise your hand, facing the sky, with a gentle wave. Her actions were understated. The next moment, a faint sound of proof, almost imperceptible, centered around the Nangong family residence. Within a radius of 1,000 li, the boundary between sky and earth, a layer of translucent ripples appeared. That burning wafer soared light at the extreme speed. He crashed headfirst into that ripple. When a metallic boom rang out, the sect master of the 10,000 sword sect crashed into that ripple. The sword light shattered inch by inch, spitting fresh blood. He was sent flying backward. The Princess of Xiang Palace's spatial teleportation technique just started. He was forcibly pushed out of the void. Blood spurted wildly in the suspicious moment. His soul suffered severe backlash. Up in the sky, those Li family warships about to complete spatial transcendence. The surrounding spatial fluctuations were soothed by a powerful force. All engines absorbed fire. All the rune-forbidden spells dimmed. The entire world was completely sealed off, completely cut off from the outside world. What is this? Feng Gegeju stared blankly at the invisible arm staff. He could feel it. The power contained within the arm staff. Compared to that Li family emperor just now, it's 100 times more terrifying. 1,000 times. Void, leave it to rest. Princess Xianggong uttered these words in despair. He casually set up a blanket that covered 1,000 miles, quietly placing it there. This tactic is chilling, far beyond everyone's understanding. There is no way out. Escape is impossible. Everyone's faces turned ashen. You look around, watching those who hit their heads and fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. You turn around, still wet. You walked back to the campfire. You put that little stool back on that one. He picked up the already cold fruit wine. Poured myself a glass. No more arguing now. You took a sip of wine, looking at the whole venue. His gaze swept over everyone. It stayed on the 3 sect leaders. He turned to the 100,000 heavenly wolf lords. Your voice sounded calm. I'm not someone who likes trouble. Since you're all here, and so enthusiastic, you insist on giving it to my Nangong family. So today, I won't bring your own sects and families to yourself. He spat out all his most valuable resources. No one should leave alive. Of course, even if you spit it out, he deserves death just as well. You grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. I'm here to inform you for a lifetime. Your words, it was like a death sentence. No room for negotiation. Cold and cruel. The devil, you devil. The seal of Lady Lei Gij was completely sealed. He points at you. The strong and weak are mad and mad. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no way out. This is merely cruel and trustworthy. They won't let us off at all. Only fight to the death. Only then can there be some vitality. The desperate situation forced out the deepest potential of everyone, but could not survive. Then we will perish together. That's right. I'm going all out with him. The sect master of the 10,000 sword sect wiped the blood from his lips. He stood up again. His face was full of resolve. I am a disciple of the 10,000 sword sect. Better to die standing. Never be born on your knees. And the strength of our 4 families. I just don't believe it. They couldn't kill just one of them. Princess Xianggong also roared. At this point, all that remained was the ruthless force of desperate struggle. They came with them. There were also elite elders and disciples from the 3 major sects, plus the remaining Tianlang army of the Li family. Though the top fighters were almost wiped out, but the remaining strength gathered together, still drawing glances from the sidelines, forming ranks, at the command, the 3 sect leaders and the only remaining Grand Elder of the Li family. They ascended simultaneously. It occupies 4 directions, east, south, west, and north. At the same time, dazzling light shone on their bodies. Princess Fenglei was covered in lightning and thunder, summoning the divine thunder of the 9 heavens. The sect master's sword energy was dispelled. It transformed into a vast sea of swords. Princess Xianggong summoned a purple sun, burning mountains and pearl seas. The Li family's Grand Elder was filled with overwhelming blood energy. It evolved into the scene of Sirius smiling at the moon. The 4 of them had actually burned their souls and essence. He intended to cultivate for the rest of his life. He pushed it to the limit without reservation. Wind, thunder, sword, sun, the 4-item divine formation, piercing a completely different yet equally terrifying force. They merged and converged in midair, roaring with a head made of thunder as its bones. Sword energy is the spirit. Purple faces serve as claws. A 4-division giant beast with blood energy as its soul. It condensed and formed at the center of the formation. The giant beast towered 10,000 jong tall. The aura was terrifying. He had already subtly surpassed the Li family emperor who had just died. This was their trump card, the combined attack formation, until the very last moment of the sect's destruction. Absolutely not used. Now, in order to survive, they blocked everything. At the moment the giant beast took shape, the entire sealed space trembled violently, eager to shatter, kill, accompanied by the 4 of them roaring in anger. The giant beast opened its bloodthirsty maw. A slanting momentum crushing everything rushes at you. This strike gathered the last hope of the 4 major powers. The 4 major powers are betting everything in one go. Facing this emperor's strike, the formation was even more terrifying. You finally frown. Not because they felt threatened. It was because of the fierce wind stirred up by the giant beast, blowing over the wine glass in front of you. The wine spilled all over the floor. You're very unhappy. Have you had enough fun? You sigh. It seems all patience has finally been lost. You slowly stand up. He didn't even look at the other side, which was already so close. Terrifying giant beast. You just stretched lazily. All the bones in his body stood on end. A soft tapping sound. His expression was lazy. With this simple action, extremely weak, an aura less than 1/10,000th of his own strength, leaking out from within his body. No earth-shattering fantasies. There was no divine light capable of destroying heaven and earth. But crack. A crisp cracking sound. It came from above everyone's heads. Everyone, including the 4 sect masters who presided over the grand formation. Instinctively, they all looked up. The sky above me, start right from the center. A pitch-black streak appeared, a bottomless crack. The cracks are visible to the naked eye, wildly spreading in all directions. Tens of thousands of jong high, billions of jong high. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a pearl that covered the entire world. Through the pitch-black crack, beyond the firmament, the dark, profound true cosmic void was fully revealed. Beyond description, the majesty that cannot be perceived by the soul, spread from you. What is that? That is the holy might. It is above the boundaries of the earth, leaping beyond the 3 realms. It does not exist in the 5 elements, as long as heaven and earth, ascending together with the main road. The true dignity of a saint. Under this aura of authority, the other side was fierce, a towering beast formed by the burning life of 4 great powerhouses. There was not even time to let out a single cry. His body starts from the head, inch by inch. It dissolves. It became the most original example. Smoke and clouds dispersed. The so-called 4 symbols divine formation. In the face of this sacred might, it's just a joke. Puff puff puff. The 4 powerful figures presiding over the grand formation. At the same time, it was as if they had been hit hard. His body fell weakly from the air. They haven't landed yet. An invisible holy might descended with a thunderous roar. Thud, thud, thud. Everyone from the 3 major sects, the remaining 100,000 heavenly wolf lords. No matter who it is, no matter what you do, regardless of cultivation level, all of you are helplessly kneeling before you. It is not submission. This is suppression at the level of life. No one was able to resist. Crack. Crack. The sound of bones cracking echoed across the plain in large waves. Countless people didn't even have time to hum. It was this overwhelming pressure. It was crushed to pieces, crushed the soul, survived by luck. They were all lying on the ground as well. His body was crushed into a puddle of flesh. All the internal organs were shattered. Only a last breath remains. 100,000 living beings all prostrated. You just stretched lazily. You haven't even exerted yourself yet. The sky is splitting as you lower your head, looking at the garbage beneath his feet, now barely human. There was no mercy in his eyes, just boring, too weak. I don't even have the qualifications to ask you to take it a little seriously. He shook his head, ready to step down. Crush all of these things. It's better to go back early and get some sleep. However, at that very moment, the Li family's supreme elder lay on the ground, barely alive. Use the last of your strength. He pulled out an ancient jade piece covered in hunting patterns from his bosom. It was an unremarkable-looking jade piece. The empty body is dim and gloomy, covered with fine hunting patterns. It was about to shatter completely. However, the grand elder of the Li family, with hands stained with blood and dirt, when holding it tightly, this broken jade piece, but it emitted a faint sound, yet it radiated an incredibly sacred light. He. The grand elder lay face down on the ground. Blood mixed with fragments of internal organs kept gushing from his mouth, but a manic and eerie smile appeared on his face. You are strong. You're strong. Unlike ordinary people. But so what? On this land, the Li family is the real king. His voice, piercing and piercing, piercing and piercing, radiating a madness that sacrifices everything. I bear the name of the 36th generation descendant of the Li family. Offer my soul as a sacrifice. Offer sacrifices. I, the heavenly wolf lord, have 100,000 remnants and resentment of wolves. Respectfully, please proceed. The holy ancestor of the upper realm, descending into this realm, and executed this scarce man. He roared. He used the last bit of life essence within his body, along with the soul. He frantically poured it into that ancient jade piece. Everything was forcibly extracted by an invisible force, transforming into torrents of blood-red streams. They surged madly toward that jade piece. Blood light surged forth, exuding an aura of malice and taboo, offering 100,000 lives as sacrifices, all just to summon a single descent. After absorbing the immense energy, that ancient jade piece, the cracks on it not only failed to heal, instead, it shattered even more completely. Crack! The jade fragment finally shattered completely, but at the very last moment of its shattering, a faint, almost invisible divine beam, rising from the heavens, it directly pierced through your subordinate's void and stillness. It absorbed the deep rift of the Tianqiang rift torn apart by the holy might. Somewhere endlessly distant, a brief coordinate was established. Ronglong never belonged to the thunder of this world. From another section of the Tianqiang rift, slowly came through the entire Qingyang continent. All living beings still alive, whether it's the old monster currently in the mortal level, or birds and beasts in the mountains and forests. At this moment, everyone stood in a state of mind, and prostrated himself to the ground, heading toward Nangong City, offering the most humble kneeling bow, far surpassing the sage's majesty. It exudes true immortality, sacred, the will of the supreme aura, begin to cross infinite worlds, slowly descending, the end of the Tianqiang rift. In that chilling, dark universe, a faint golden light lit up. At first, the golden light was just one dot, but in the next moment, the golden light spread endlessly. 1 foot, from that golden ocean, he slowly stepped out. Just 1 foot, it covered the entire mountain range in vastness. At his feet, stepping on the stars, on the ankle, entwined with destructive thunder. With the appearance of this foot, the laws of the entire Qingyang continent were wailing. Everyone was retreating. They simply cannot bear the arrival of this being. Respectfully welcoming the holy ancestor. The holy ancestor descends, and are treated as insignificant as ants. Why not quickly accept death? The 3 sect leaders on the ground were crushed to the brink of death. He sensed this familiar and even more powerful aura. A look of wild joy flashed across his face. They understood. This is the real thing about the Li family. The ultimate trump card. It was the legendary figure. Ascend to a higher world. He had long since become the first sent ancestor of the true God. Though what descended was only a void phenomenon, a little strength, but it was enough to crush everything in this mortal world. They were saved. Not only was there hope, they could even see this reckless devil with their own eyes. Truly by the gods, crushed into dust, that golden figure that covered the sky and jade, slowly lowered his head, a pair of dazzling eyes. It fell below, on you, who seemed so insignificant. A grand one, majesty, a voice without any emotion, resounding across heaven and earth. Ants in the mortal realm, it's you, provoking ignorant bloodline. As the voice fell, words are spoken, and the law follows. The power of the laws capable of erasing the stars, appearing out of thin air, crushing toward you. The power of the laws carries the danger of judgment from the gods of the upper realm. Facing this world-shattering situation, a scene that could plunge the entire world back into chaos, you finally lift your head. You look at the descending golden illusion, looking into those eyes that contain the rise and fall of stars, the unchanging boredom and desolation on your face. Finally, slowly, it will be slightly removed. A light flashed in his eyes. That was finally the light of the enemy in battle. You didn't resist the overwhelming force of the laws. Let it fall on you. This stirred up a wave of momentum, blowing the hem of your clothes. You just look at that golden phantom. He touched it. Then, under the overwhelming divine might, among the prostrating beings, he muttered softly, "This is actually somewhat interesting." That phrase was light and airy, piercing through the overwhelming divine might. That descending golden phantom. Those eyes shone brighter than the sun and moon. There was a noticeable pause for a moment. He had anticipated countless possible reactions. The fear of ants in the lower realm. Despair. kneeling and begging for mercy, even a frenzied counterattack that burns everything. But he never expected this, the other party's reaction. It's interesting, the subordinate actually judged the superior. Absurdity and unprecedented desecration. The grand voice sounded a second time. This time, the anger contained within. The entire Qingyang continent was filled with the Tianqiang rift, all of them ignited with golden divine brilliance. I am a saint of the Li family from the upper realm, and hold the authority of creation. Words become law, Dharma follows, and you see your true form. It has become a floating plane that all living beings of the lower realm cannot cultivate. This seat presents the proclamation of judgment. Strip away your destiny, erase your true spirit. Let your warriors sink into nothingness. To be cautious and smile is present. With his verdict, beyond the rules, it involves the power of fate itself. Suddenly descended, it was a power beyond words. It directly affects your very being. To take you out of this timeline, completely erase this karma. The 3 sect leaders on the ground trembled all over. Revoke the life penalty. Erase the true spirit. This is the true method a god should have. This is the true supreme judgment. They anticipated that arrogant boy, below the Shen family, along with all the memories about him. All of this is a scene that dissolves into nothingness. However, facing this deadly judgment, ha, you suddenly laughed. You start by chuckling softly. Then the laughter grew louder and louder. Finally, it turned into a wild laugh that could pierce the heavens and earth. Ha. Amid your laughter, no anger, no disdain, only heard under the sky. The funniest joke like joy, stripping away my destiny, obliterate my true spirit. Just you laugh and laugh. He slowly lifted his head. Those pears always carried a hint of laziness, and in those bored eyes, finally, 2 points were ignited, an unprecedented divine light. You know my 2 eyes. Have you seen so many lives in the world? You know my ears. He had heard countless cries and curses from the great Tao. 80,000 years. I haven't feft myself here, just because I'm too strong. I'm afraid I might be careless. Sneeze. This world is gone. Every word you say, the aura on his body, and then climb 1 point. Originally, it was only a small leak. It crushed 100,000 living beings. It tore apart the entire sacred might of Tianqiang. Begin a frenzied release without reservation. HMPH, an indescribable aura, rising from within you, soaring into the sky. There were 2 in total. Behind you, 2 rounds of light fortune slowly rose. That's not the sun, nor is it a Dharma incense. That is the condensation of the Tao. It is the manifestation of fruit. Each round of light fortune represents a path to the ultimate path of a sage. Each round of light fortune contains the power to create heaven and earth, the supreme power to reshape the universe. Twin Saint Mirror. When those 2 rings represent the double saint fruit ranks, the moment it appears behind you, the whole world, all the voices, all the light, everything disappeared. Enough to erase the stars, the so-called deprivation of life, divine law. The moment he touched the divine halo's light fortune, not even a speck of dust could be raised. It was silently obliterated, as if it had never existed. The only one in the world, only the 2 slowly rotating divine rings remained. And beneath the divine ring, the figure standing with his deputy, above the limits of heaven, that golden paw, even larger than a mountain range. Violent trembling begins, those eyes more brilliant than the sun and moon. The sacredness within it, dignity, anger, and all vanished. Replacing it, it was as if a mortal had seen a ghost. Extreme terror and shock. Double saint. His grand voice, stutter, filled with an incredible tremolo. No, it is not correct. The lower realm. How could the lower realm be born? The existence of the double saint fruit position. He backed down. His shadow stood there. If we speak of a saint, it is about transcending the 3 realms, an existence as long as heaven and earth. That powerful being with the dual saint fruit ranks. It means being able to set the rules yourself. A monster that determines the mandate of heaven and earth. That connection is to the upper realm. All belong to the legend within legends. A forbidden existence that exists only in the oldest myths. Just now, another such existence. The death sentence was pronounced. This understanding, this saint's phantom soul, he nearly broke down on the spot. He spoke slowly. The tone was calm, yet it clearly reached every corner of this world. He is also worthy of being called a sage. As soon as he finished speaking, a single sound was enough to turn all the mountains of Qingyang continent into a giant statue of dust. A thunderous sound came from above Tianqiang. That golden shadow that covered the sky and jade, that massive figure standing on the stars, under the watchful eyes of billions of living beings, in the worldview of the 3 sect leaders on the ground that had completely collapsed. His knees went weak. Toward you below, He knelt down heavily. That earth-shattering kneel. It resonated with heaven and earth, above the limits of heaven. That towering golden illusion eye. The massive body curled up. The noble talisman exists in the void. He shrank and trembled at the figure below. Senior, senior, please spare me. A grand and majestic voice. At this moment, all that remained was indiscriminate pleas and trembling. The younger generation failed to recognize Mount Tai. I do not know that the senior legalists are here. Junior Li Xiantian. He was a saint of the ink flow from the previous Taishu divine court. Today, he is summoned by the next bloodline sacrifice. Only then did this wisp of divine sense descend and scatter around him. I have absolutely no intention of offending your senior. Li Xiantian was about to lose his mind. He never dreamed of it. He was merely responding to the call of his descendants. Come down to the mortal realm and show off, and to solve some minor troubles along the way. But then I crashed head-on. A master of the twin saints mirror who exists only in mythology. This is 10,000 times less likely than a mortal being killed by a meteorite from beyond the heavens while walking. He began to explain frantically. He laid out everything he knew, attempting to use information to gain a glimmer of hope. Senior, Ning Ding is a powerful being lingering in this world. Wan Sai knew an ancient road leading to the primordial divine realm. The laws of heaven and earth there are far beyond what the Taishu divine court can compare to. It will surely bear the true body of the senior. I also know a clue to an ancient divine repository. It is said that it holds secrets beyond the sacred realm. The 3 sect leaders on the ground who had luckily survived the holy might had killed them. He was completely stunned. Their brains have stopped working. They simply stared blankly at the scene in the sky that had overturned their entire understanding. Their last and strongest backing. The legendary first holy ancestor who ascended to godhood. He was kneeling before the young man, wagging his tail in sympathy. The 3 of them sat greedily on the ground, looking like dead ashes. What do you mean by Li Xiantian being the source of the divine realm? An ancient divine organ. He showed no interest at all. You just feel a bit noisy. After finally some quiet, here comes another one buzzing in your ear. You lift your head. He glanced at the cabinet's unbelievably standard design. He didn't even dare lift his head to the golden phantom. Then, you slowly lift your foot. An action as simple as it could be. Wazao. You softly utter 2 words. Then he pointed toward the golden phantom in the sky. He casually kicked out. Go back. This kick. No laws are being driven, nor did it stir up any divine light. When your toes land. Li Xiantian was kneeling there, showing his whiskers. He was kicked directly in the face by the distance. Li Xiantian only had time to let out a desperate scream. His massive golden whiskers and wings, and immediately fell apart. It transformed into countless golden points of light. But that's not all. That invisible force, following the mysterious connection between the two, crossing endless barriers across the world. It traced directly back to Li Xuantian's true form, the distant upper realm, inside a certain sanctuary of the Taishu divine court. Yiming sat cross-legged, an elderly man surrounded by holy light. His eyes suddenly opened. He spat out a large mouthful of golden holy blood. His aura instantly reached its peak, even a micron. On her face, filled with unprecedented shock and fear. Double victory. Netherworld. How could that be? She hadn't finished speaking. The entire sanctuary was suddenly transformed by the power that appeared out of thin air. It was crushed into cosmic dust. In the sky above Qingyang continent, the golden light faded away. The foot has been withdrawn. His expression remained as usual. Between heaven and earth, finally, it was completely quiet. Your gaze slowly dropped. He crossed over that now empty void. It landed on the plain below, those barely clinging to life, on a piece of trash that can't even move a finger, and was granted the title of Princess Gij, Sect Master of the 10,000 Sword Sect, Princess of Xiangong, and all those who still have their last breath left. The Li family soldiers and the 3 major gatekeepers, they felt that calm gaze. That gaze was devoid of emotion, but it allows them to penetrate every corner of their souls. Everyone rose more than when facing Shenwei earlier, and it carries a strong meaning thousands of times stronger. Everyone seemed to have fallen into the air as if ice had fallen and withered, standing upright all over. Senior. Princess Xiangong summoned all her strength. 2 words slipped out of his throat. He could no longer speak his words for mercy, because the ending was already said. You look at them. His face showed no expression. This farce should come to an end. You have stood here for too long. I'm a bit tired. I want to go back and take a good sleep. So you open your mouth, looking at the land stretching 1,000 li beneath his feet. Gently, He spat out a single word, and was destroyed. The word is very light, so light that a gust of wind can blow it away. But when the word came out, the whole world suddenly felt light. Those three sect masters who once dominated the world. The desperate expression on his face had just frozen in time. The body begins to become transparent. Then it disappeared. Those tens of thousands of Li family soldiers and sect disciples still barely alive. They didn't even have time to let out a scream. At the same time, it turned into nothingness. Their weapons, their magic weapon, the wreckage of their warships, all traces belonging to them, all things tainted by their karma, all are powers that cannot be understood, completely erased from this world. The wind blows across the plains. All it brings is the fragrance of earth. There was no trace of bloodshed left. That earth-shattering battle just now, the devastation of 100,000 damp and brutal scenes. It was like a dreamlike dream. On this land, except for the Nangong family, he could never find the Li family again, and sealed it as at GE, 10,000 sword sect. Anyone in Xiang Palace, anything. Wipe out the entire land. One word exterminates the clan. Finish all of this. You clapped your hands. He seemed very satisfied with his cleaning work. You turn around. He walked toward the one who had just slowly awakened from his coma. Nangong Junyi, who was staring blankly at all of this. When Nangong Junyi woke up, his mind was not yet clear. His last memory, the blood-robed ancestor who destroys heaven and earth descends. The three sect leaders knelt and waged their tales in despair. But now, what did he see? The sky is split. The land is clean. The Li family's fleet was missing. The true faces of the three great sects were gone. Even the arrogant Li family emperor. They all vanished without a trace. Across the vast plains, except for his own residents and unconscious clansmen, only that remained. The one who was slowly walking toward her. Our ancestors. Ancestor. Nangong Junyi struggled to get up. His voice was trembling. What happened to the hair? Where are the Li family members? Oh, it's too noisy, so I just cleaned it up casually. You say the clouds are dry and the breeze is gentle. It's like saying you just crushed a nest of ants. Cleared it out. Nangong Juanli's mind completely shut down. That was the Li family. They are the three top sects. It was the descending emperor. It was just cleared out like that. He hadn't had time to ask further. Their daughter, Nangong Linga, also woke up. Supporting him, he also widened his eyes and looked around. And at this moment, the outside world had already been in turmoil. First, the pressure of the emperor's soldiers. Then there was the terrifying heaven-hunting divine might of Saint Might. Then came the kneeling worship of the deity descending. Finally, everything returns to silence. All remaining forces of Qingyang continent. Those old monsters hiding in their own mountain gates, trembling with fear. They were almost scared out of their wits by all the twists and turns. When they send out scouts, when investigating near Nangong City, the news brought back, let everyone bring in the wooden chicken. The Li family is gone. Feng Weiger, no more. The 10,000 sword sect is gone. Xiang Palace is gone too. These four towering figures stand in the hall of Qingyang Great Continent. It has become a sect passed down for tens of thousands of years, along with the 100,000 troops they had dispatched and that soldier's emperor lord. In a single night, it vanished completely. Not even a single corpse, not a single piece of rubble. Only the Nangong family remained. This news, it spread rapidly across the entire continent. Everyone understood. The weather has changed. Qingyang Daizhou. From now on, there is only one voice. That was the voice of the Nangong family. A few days later, scenes were nothing short of magical. Performed across various places. Countless sects and family leaders in power, bringing the most precious treasures they could offer, all surged toward Nangong City. They knelt outside the Nangong family's residence, all just to request an audience with the head of the Nangong family, offering loyalty, pray for protection. Faced with a sudden overwhelming wave of power, Nangong Junyi's breathing grew rapid. My legs went weak. He understood. All of this stems from that unfathomable ancestor. He nervously reported the situation outside. I reported this to you, who are sunbathing in the backyard. Ancestor, now, all the forces across the continent want to join my Nangong family. Look, trouble. You didn't even lift your eyelids. He spat out two words. You rolled over. I switched to a more comfortable position. He continued to rest with his eyes closed. These forces mean not to bother me. You watch for yourself. Nangong Junyi shivered. He understood what the ancestor meant. This was handing over all the power over the world to him. With this sentence, Nangong Junyi straightened his back. He was bold and decisive. Begin integrating the resources and territory of the entire Qingliang continent. The Nangong family's power, at an unprecedented speed, wildly swollen, a super giant that dominates the world, thus came to life, and the creator of all of this. But he had no interest in these things. A few days later, You called Nangong Junyi and Nangong Linga to your side. I'm going back to sleep. You stretched lazily. He seemed a bit out of touch with the opposite sex. Ancestor, you have to leave. Nangong Linga felt a bit reluctant to leave. Go back to where you started. You said, counting on fingers. A figure exactly like you comes out of your body, standing aside. This figure exuded a restrained aura, but Nangong Junyi and Nangong Linga only glanced at each other. His spirit stood firm. I'll leave a clone here. Normally, he doesn't manage affairs, but if there are still some careless things coming to cause you trouble, he will make a move. You finish your instructions, he added. He will take the other person, along with the other side's ancestors for 18 generations. Erase them from this world. Finish all of this. Your figure begins to become ethereal. Prepare to return to your secluded secret realm. For you, this time, when going out, it was just a casual walk. Now it's time to go home and continue staying at home. Ancestor, Nangong Linga suddenly mustered her courage and called out to stop her. What realm are you, really? This is him. It is also Nangong military art. A question the whole world wants to explore. Your already semi-transparent figure paused. You turned back, looking at his insect granddaughter. After thinking for a moment, a lazy smile appeared on his face. Wow, that's probably it. Your world. From now on, you will have the final say in my Nangong family. That realm. As soon as he finished speaking, on the calm surface of the lake, sigh. Fighting and killing is exhausting. You let out a long sigh of relief, comfortably leaning back in the chair, still trembling comfortably. But if anyone moves my village girl a little more, next time, I really have to consider going to his ancestral grave.